Come back, kid. Early in the morning, Maryland University was always quiet. Today was the day of the Dragon boat race, and most of the students took the opportunity to sleep in till late midday. But there were exceptions. Hey, look, he's hot. No matter how hot he is, he's still a scavenger. He will always be a loser. You're talking about Harry Parker? I met him 3 years ago when he came to school. He's the famous rubbish prince, the poorest man in Maryland University. Every year, he relies on the scholarship to eat. As usual, Harry was inspecting the school's trash cans early in the morning. Everyone who saw him talked about him. Some despised him, some pitied him, and some hated him. There were also those who deliberately caused him trouble. But Harry was already used to it. Even though people around him commented on his source of livelihood, his expression remained unchanged. Unperturbed, he held out his long clamp, took the water bottle out of the trash, and put it in his backpack. For the past 3 years, he relied on waste collection to support his school expenses. He had met all sorts of people, and if he had let their comments affect his mood, he would not have been able to resist until now, let alone find a girlfriend. Thinking about this, Harry smiled slightly. That was the thing that made him happiest. After almost half a year of relentless pursuit, Bella, who was in the same class as him, had finally agreed to become his girlfriend 2 weeks ago. That was also the reason he'd been waking up so early lately. He had just spent $300 he had saved from picking up trash to buy a phone for Bella. It was a phone with the fastest refresh rate and the best camera in the tech world currently. Now his wallet was empty, so he had to collect more junk before the garbage truck came. Unfortunately, the price of junk has dropped too much lately. It was not easy to earn this money. Harry was a little worried. When he entered school, he chose to specialize in geology. He wasn't learning so well, so he couldn't make money based on his academic knowledge. He also did not want to work as an unskilled worker. He wanted to take a look at the talent market tomorrow. As he thought about it, he kept wandering around. He searched from the dormitory downstairs to the door of the art department next door and more or less picked up half a bag of junk. Maryland University covered a large area. After a while, he was like running a mini marathon. Harry felt his legs weaken. He looked around and found a chair to sit on. After resting for a while, he wanted to continue collecting junk. However, when he raised his foot, he inadvertently saw something beside him. It was a half-filled bottle of Sprite. It was leaning by the armrest, and the lid was loose. Someone must have left it there. Harry hesitated. An unclaimed bottle of Sprite could quench his thirst, and the bottle could be sold for 30 cents. Should he drink it? Of course he wanted to drink it, and it wasn't like he needed to pay for it. Harry did not hesitate and picked it up. He opened it and drank it in one gulp. Just like this, it was gone. He drank more than half of it in 2 gulps. Maryland was still hot in the morning in June. The Sprite was just enough to quench his thirst. He drank comfortably, narrowing his eyes with pleasure. After all, it was a drink that cost $3, worth 10 plastic bottles. He usually didn't have that kind of spare money. "What are you doing? That's my drink." Suddenly, a slightly shocked shout nearby interrupted Harry's drinking. He was stunned for a moment. Still sucking the bottle, he turned his head. He saw a dumbfounded girl in a pleated yellow skirt. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Their eyes met, and they were both speechless. I'm sorry, I thought no one wanted it." Harry came back to his senses and awkwardly stopped drinking. He tightened the bottle lid and handed it over. "Here you are." There was only 1 sip left in the bottle. "You!" The girl in the pleated skirt glared at Harry angrily, turned and left with disgust. Harry shrugged and pretended not to see. He opened the lid, drank the rest, and happily put the bottle in his backpack. "Harry!" Just as he was doing this, a girl jogged over from the left. Harry looked up and smiled. "Daisy, what are you doing here?" Daisy was Harry's classmate. Her family wasn't poor, but they weren't rich either. She wore a simple dress and no makeup. She didn't look remarkable, but at the same time, she was Bella's best friend. For Harry to be with Bella, her discreet help was indispensable. Harry was very grateful to her, so he spoke politely. I have something to tell you. Daisy's face was red, and she was out of breath. Obviously, she came here in a hurry. Under Harry's puzzled gaze, she hesitated for a moment, then gritted her teeth and said, Well, Bella asked me to return this to you. She wants to break up with you. Daisy handed him a phone. It was the one he gave to Bella. Harry's smile froze on his face. Break up? He looked at Daisy with a bitter expression. Did she say why? Daisy showed a trace of pity. She asked me to tell you that you are from different worlds. The junk you pick up in a year is not as much as Benedict's salary. Harry was silent for a moment. After a while, he let out a bitter laugh. So it's because of the money. Harry looked at himself. He once worried that their relationship wouldn't last long. After all, with this job of picking up trash, she must have heard some rumors. He could understand if she could not bear the ridicule of others and wanted to break up. But she chose a playboy because of money. Honestly, Harry was quite disappointed with Bella when he heard this news. Benedict was very famous at Maryland University. He was known as the richest man in the art department. His family probably had hundreds of millions of assets. He usually wore all kinds of luxury clothes and had a GTR car. He hopped from girlfriend to girlfriend, never kept one for more than a month. Such a person was obviously not suitable for a serious relationship. Bella was with him only for money. Harry initially thought that since Bella agreed to be with him, it was enough to prove that she was not a vain woman. That was why he prepared a surprise for her, but it seemed that this woman was very good at pretending she was selfless. Fine. It was better to know about this sooner than later. Such a woman was not worth entertaining. Thinking about it, he felt a little better. He looked up and thanked Daisy. Then he took the phone and turned to leave. Harry, don't be too sad. Bella's not worth it for you to miss her. Daisy was a kind girl. She felt a little guilty and wanted to comfort Harry. It's not your fault. Thank you. Harry didn't even turn his head. He waved his hand and left. He walked to a bench where no one was around. He sat down and looked at the phone in his hand, thinking about all the things that happened in the past. Suddenly, he felt that it was somewhat boring, that things like dating were not realistic without money. He was lost in thought. Thinking about something, Harry fumbled in his pocket and pulled out a new phone card. He opened it and put it in the phone returned by Bella. The start screen flashed. Then, text messages appeared, one after the other. The family committee has confirmed that the family member, Harry, is 21 years old and is in line with the age of inheritance. The property will be officially handed over today. Please go to the Citibank branch on 15th Avenue in Laurel to acquire the inheritance within 1 month of receiving the notification. If you exceed the time limit, by default, you will waive your rights to the inheritance. Since you are a direct descendant of the family and have the right of inheritance, starting today, you can apply for unconditional help from the family only once. Please note that this opportunity cannot be transferred by any other heir. The familiar commanding tone and the old-fashioned style made Harry suddenly feel a little nostalgic. He didn't know how many people in the family remembered him after he left 6 years ago. This was the surprise he had planned to give Bella at his birthday party. A surprise that would make ordinary people wild with joy. Unfortunately, Bella will never have the chance. Harry Parker was actually not poor. He was just passing the family's trial. According to the family rules, all members of the Lynn family had to leave the family's protection at the age of 15. They had to live independently for 6 years without any help from the family. During this time, there was no restriction on their way of life. As long as he could survive, he would be able to get 1% of the family property. This number didn't seem like much, but the terrifying total amount of the property made its real value so great that it was sensational. Parker's financial group was a name that was known to everyone in the Forbes charts. It was one of the representative industries of Harry's family. It was hiding in a world that ordinary people could not touch. It controlled the economic direction of the world and played with big and small countries in the palm of its hand. It could easily trigger global economic turmoil. In terms of wealth, Parker's financial group could buy about 1/3 of the earth, and now 1% of it belonged to Harry. According to the family rules, this huge amount of wealth could be used for himself or invested. If he chose to rely on the money to sit around waiting to die for the rest of his life, no one would object. In fact, there was this type of successor in every generation, and there was quite a few of them. Therefore, to increase competition within the family and to ensure its continuity, the ancestral teachings stated that each direct descendant had the right to register for re-election and compete for the head of the next generation of the family. And the criterion of the evaluation was to see who could use the inheritance to create a higher value. Harry had considered this when he left the family, but now he lacked interest. There were 2 other direct heirs of this generation, and these 2 were truly awesome figures. One of them had a large mercenary group in the Middle East. Not including the main force, the mercenary group had many smaller legions of men. The other was a famous stockbroker genius. He was said to have tricked the family's professional operators into selling them their raw shares in all major industries. Now he had them in the palm of his hands. Harry had no intention of competing with them. His parents died early, and he did not have many acquaintances in the family. He just wanted to be an ordinary person and lead a peaceful and wealthy life. If he were to compete for the position of head of the family, he was safe at home, but the bullets in the Middle East were deadly. Thinking of this, Harry suddenly stood up and threw all the plastic bottles that he had picked up half the morning into the trash can. Then he walked out of the school. The nearest Citibank branch was located in the neighboring city, Laurel. He planned to go there now and take possession of the inheritance. Harry's life was about to change forever. Episode 2. Mo money, mo problems. Harry took a taxi to Citibank. He paid over $60 as the cab fare, but he didn't feel rich now. After all, he was a billionaire. He was able to manage in life when he was short of money. Now that he had money, why suffer? It was only $60. When he got out of the car, it was already 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Although it was noon, there were still many people at the Citibank branch. Harry recalled that someone in his family once said, "There is no rest in the service industry." Citibank was an international bank that the Bank of Laurel were familiar with, but knew very little about. In the eyes of ordinary people, it might be a distant joint venture, but for the Parker family, it was their service industry. A service industry that managed a small amount of their money. Harry walked to the door, checked the constituents of his bucket, and entered the hall. A receptionist immediately approached him. "Hello, sir. I'm the receptionist here, and you can call me Stacy. May I help you?" The person who spoke was a woman with a kind face. Her figure was well proportioned, and her appearance was above average. Her voice sounded a little high-pitched, which added quite a bit of charm. Harry sized her up for a moment and replied, "I came for an asset transfer." "Asset transfer?" Stacy repeated in a puzzled tone and with a questioning look. She looked up at Harry. He wore ordinary clothes. His skin was dark from the sun, and he even had small scratches on his fingers. He was obviously a poor man. Reaching this conclusion, her eyes became somewhat contemptuous. Such a person could not be a Citibank customer. "Sir, the minimum transfer amount for our bank assets is $1 million. Her high salary made her maintain basic courtesy. It was her job to be so, after all. She did not sneer, but said sarcastically, "How much are your assets worth?" Harry thought for a while and answered, somewhat helplessly, I'm not sure about the details. Indeed, it was not clear. The investment made the family's business assets grow exponentially. He couldn't tell how much 1% of the family business was worth. But it will certainly not be less than $1 million. Harry was sure about this. Stacy looked at Harry suspiciously, thinking he was pretending to be cool. Still, she maintained her professionalism and pointed to a counter, saying, "This is the business service area for over $5 million. What do you think?" Harry shook his head. "Too little." "This is the business area worth more than $10 million. It's still too little." "The business area worth more than $50 million. It's still too little." Stacy remained silent. She looked at Harry with a trace of disdain. "Sir, $50 million is the highest quota in the normal business area. Do you have assets over $100 million? The woman had plenty of reason to doubt Harry. In her view, even if he wanted to keep a low profile, he would not be dressed so carelessly. How could such a person have assets worth $100 million? Harry shook his head. No. Stacy was speechless. $100 million is too little. It should be at least $10 billion, Harry continued. She was stunned now. After a while, she came to her senses and sneered. There must be a limit to making stuff up, don't you think? She didn't even bother to call him Mr. anymore, considering he was nothing but a troublemaker. How many people dare to say they have tens of billions of assets? Harry sighed. He didn't bother to argue with her. Too many people looked down on him. He could not explain it to each of them. He simply raised his head and looked around. Seeing the sign of the VIP reception room, he headed over there. Stacy was stunned for a moment before rushing after him. "Hey, what are you doing?" "Security." Too bad. It was already too late. Harry walked quickly and pushed the half-closed door. In the reception area, a middle-aged man sitting behind a desk looked up. When he saw Harry, he was obviously stunned. Then his eyes fell on Stacy, who was following him, and with an unfriendly expression, he said, "Stacy, what are you doing?" I'm sorry, Mr. Foles. I'm sorry." Stacy kept apologizing, becoming more and more flustered. She grabbed Harry's hand and tried to pull him out. "I will take him away now." Harry did not move, and Stacy's strength was not enough, so she could not pull him away at all. "Mr. Foles, is it? Is that how you treat VIP customers?" Harry slowly pulled Stacy's hand away, walked leisurely in front of the desk, and sat down calmly. After a moment of astonishment, Mr. Foles smiled. "Sir, you want to withdraw some cash." His expression was mocking and his tone disbelieving, as if he didn't think that Harry had that much money. Harry wasted no time with him. He took something out of his pocket and slammed it on the table. "See for yourself," he said lightly. Mr. Foles chuckled and tilted his head, looking at him indifferently. Then, suddenly he jumped out of his seat. "Mr. Foles." At this point, the security guards finally came. A few tall, strong men entered the office and reached out to grab Harry. Harry acted as if he didn't see the scene. He was focused on picking his nails. "Mr. Foles, if you are not free, I will leave." "No!" Mr. Foles suddenly came back to his senses and panicked. If he missed such a large sum of money, he might lose his job. He immediately realized his mistake and quickly tried to fix it. "What I mean is that you don't have to go through so much trouble. Mr. Parker, we can approve your transaction now." Then he scolded the guards. "You have nothing to do here, so leave. If you scare Mr. Parker, would you like to lose your job?" The security guards were all dumbfounded. They looked at each other and left, confused. This scene stunned Stacy, who was at the door. What was going on? Could it be that this man was really a secret billionaire? "Why are you still standing there? Go and bring Mr. Parker some coffee." Mr. Foles turned and scolded Stacy again. "Make sure you bring our finest cold brew, understand?" "Yes." Stacy didn't dare to ask what the best coffee was and went out the door, confused. "Mr. Parker, there was a misunderstanding just now. I would like to apologize." As there was no one else in the room, Mr. Foles' attitude was even more humble. He asked Harry, "What can we do for you?" Mr. Foles was afraid. He acknowledged that what Harry gave him was a certificate of asset security. It showed that he rented the most secure safe from Citibank, and he even rented 5 of them. The rent of these 5 safe boxes was $1 million per year. One could imagine how valuable the things inside were. But that was not the point. The point was that this voucher had 3 signatures of Part B. One belonged to the CEO of Citibank's headquarters, one to Citibank's Asia Pacific CEO, and the other to the bank's president. Thanks to his business experience, Mr. Foles was able to understand what these 3 signatures represented. Such a situation occurred only when the group's top management actively asked to be custodians. He almost rejected the project that the higher-ups wanted to carry out. When he thought about it, he felt a wave of fear in his heart. He was afraid that Harry would go back on his word. At that point, he may lose his job on the spot. "I want to complete the transfer of assets and withdraw some cash." Harry looked at him. "Also, get me an asset manager. I might have some questions to ask. I need someone with experience." $10 billion. Mr. Foles felt his legs trembling and broke out in cold sweat. "Mr. Parker, this goes above my pay grade to handle assets worth more than $10 billion. Please wait for a moment. I will give CEO Hartigan a call." Seeing that Harry nodded in agreement, he pulled out his phone and headed for the door to make a call. Meanwhile, Stacy brought the coffee and heard the voice of Mr. Foles. She didn't hear very well, only vaguely a few words. $10 billion, asset management, requires authorization. But even so, Stacy was scared silly. Just now, she had looked down on the boy that came in. And now, his matter actually required Mr. Foles to turn to the CEO? What did this mean? This meant that, with just one sentence, he could make her lose this hard-earned job. She instantly panicked. When she brought coffee, her eyes were unfocused. It wasn't until she placed the cup on the table and saw Harry picking it up and slowly taking a sip that she regained her composure, although her face was still pale. "Mr. Parker." Stacy grabbed Harry's hand and begged. "It's all my fault. I beg you, please don't tell Mr. Foles." "Stacy, what are you doing? Let him go." Mr. Foles just ended the call and entered. When he saw this scene, he said angrily, "How dare you bother Mr. Parker? Get out." But Stacy did not dare to leave. She knew that if she left now, she would not be called to come back to work tomorrow. She was still pulling Harry's sleeve, and her tone was getting more and more desolate. She begged bitterly, "Mr. Parker, I know I was wrong. Not to worry." Harry put down his coffee cup. He initially thought to make things difficult for Stacy. He was also human, so it was inevitable that he would have emotions. Stacy looked down on him so naturally he wouldn't mind giving her a lesson. However, when he saw the bright and beautiful woman begging him, he suddenly lost interest. He said to himself, "Harry, after all, you were born at the top of the pyramid. Those people who walk the same path as you, most of them spend their entire lives creating value for you. Is it necessary for you to get down to the level of this kind of person?" Harry felt that it was not worth it, so he said, "You can leave. I did not take this matter to heart." Stacy cried with joy. She bowed again and thanked him. Covering her mouth, she walked out the door. Harry looked at her back. At this point, he suddenly understood the meaning of money. With a single sentence, he could change the fate of an ordinary person. This was the power of money. he realized this. Then he heard a hearty laugh. "Young Mr. Harry, I was looking forward to seeing you." Episode 3, Winner Takes All. Harry looked up and saw a lively old man at the door. This old man was about 70 years old. His hair was white, but it was neatly combed, fixed at his temples. He wore a good black suit with a bow tie and a cane in his hand. He looked at Harry with a trace of affection in his eyes. Harry was puzzled. He was sure he had never seen this person before, but why did he feel a strange sense of familiarity? He could not understand, so he asked, "You are—" Mr. Foles hurriedly bowed and greeted, "President Parker." "No need to introduce me. You may leave." The old man smiled broadly. He went in and let Mr. Foles leave. Instead of sitting at the desk, he pulled a chair and sat down next to Harry. "It's been a dozen years, and you don't recognize me anymore. I'm your father's steward, Nate Parker. When you were young, I held you with my own arms." Nate Parker? You are Uncle Nate? Harry remembered now. He felt happy to see someone close after so long. "Uncle Nate, why are you here?" Prestigious families were bound through their blood, but feelings of affection were relatively weak. Nate Parker had been Harry's father's steward for 27 years. It wasn't until Harry's parents suddenly died that he resigned and he left the family. Harry was one of the few people who really had feelings for him. "I am now the CEO of the Citibank branch in Maryland City." The old man winked at Harry and smiled, seeing him astonished. "Young Harry, I know you must wonder why an old man like me suddenly became the CEO of Citibank." Harry didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Nate was a funny person. Even though he was old, he didn't take things too seriously. "Uncle Nate, I'm really curious, but if it's not convenient for you to say, why would it be inconvenient?" Nate waved his hand. "It was your father's orders. He left me a sum of money and said that the economy was growing too fast and that the depreciation rate was too high. He asked me to help you manage your assets in advance." Harry was stunned. He always thought that Nate had left their family because he wanted to live his own life. Although he could understand this, he still felt uncomfortable. At the time, he had lost all his family members. Precisely at that painful moment, Nate left. It was a big blow to him, but it seemed that reality played a prank on him. Nate, who was almost 70 years old back then, left his invaluable job as a housekeeper for the sake of his property and engaged in banking and investment services. Harry could not imagine how much effort he put into this. All he knew was that from now on, this old man with a friendly smile was someone he could not disappoint for the rest of his life. He was not a relative. He was more than that. "Uncle Nate, thank you," he said in a low voice. Nate's smile became even warmer. He took no pride in his achievements. He was still as humble and gentle as he had been in the last 27 years. He said, "Young Harry Parker has grown up." Then he started laughing again. "Harry, don't blame me for not helping you. I really wanted to help. But I didn't dare disobey the family rules." Harry nodded. "I know. By the way, Uncle Nate, how much money did they give me?" "I think a few tens of billions." Nate's tone was very light, as if he did not take it seriously. He looked at his watch, stood up, and said to Harry, "We will know the exact amount after seeing it. Harry, come. I will take you to the vault. It should all be prepared." As he said this, he made an inviting gesture and took a half step back. Although he was no longer a butler, he still behaved like one. Harry followed him out of the VIP office. They turned a corner and went down a bright corridor. After walking for 10 minutes, they reached the end of the corridor. They went through the sealed metal scanning room and turned another corner. In front of them appeared a huge white metal door. "This is a chromatic steel alloy gate. It is puncture resistant, durable, and can absorb a large amount of impact force. It is the material of choice for international investment and insurance companies. Nate explained with a smile. He walked to the door and scanned his retina, fingerprints, and palm prints. Then he took out a key. The security officer in charge was following him closely. He pulled out a second key and, combining the two, opened the door. "Sir, President Parker, please follow me." The officer led them to the place where the safe was stored. Then he motioned to Harry and said, "Mr. Parker, you need to verify your retina scans and fingerprints." Harry nodded and followed his instructions. The safe opened immediately with a click. The officer in charge took out the information and handed it to Harry. Harry waved his hand. "Give it to Uncle Nate." The officer was stunned for a moment and quickly handed it over. Nate smiled and glanced at it. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Harry, the Parker family is a bit stingy." The security officer was taken aback. Did President Parker actually call this young man Harry? What was going on? Harry was very curious. "How much is it?" This property is divided into 3 categories. One is general supply, the other is an original industrial stock, and the other is cash. Nate said, "These include precious metals and precious stones. Each is worth $10 billion, and the cash is also $8.8 billion. The officer was shocked. There was more than $20 billion here, so why did he say the Parker family was stingy? Harry also could not stay calm. "So much money? You think that's a lot?" Nate looked strangely at Harry. "Harry, don't you know? Your father inherited the same amount as you. That was more than $20 billion 20 years ago." Harry was amazed. When he thought about it that way, it really wasn't much. In 20 years, how much had the dollars depreciated? The total amount did not actually change. Perhaps seeing that Harry was not satisfied, Nate winked at him. "Harry, it's okay. The family is stingy, but your father is very generous." Harry looked at him. "Uncle Nate, what do you mean by that?" Although the inheritance of all members of the Parker family will belong to the family after their death and will be used as starting money for the next generation, if they start their own business and earn their own money, they can control it independently. Nate smiled broadly. He leaned over and whispered, "Harry, your father left you $20 billion. $20 billion? Harry was shocked. He remembered that his father was a business whiz. So many people openly supported him to become the head of the family. But he would never have thought that his father would save so much money for him. $20 billion is the initial amount. Nate seemed pleased with himself. "All these years, I took the opportunity of working for Citibank, and I invested in their VC funds. The amount of money has doubled. Now it is $40 billion. He raised 4 fingers. "I set up a foundation in your name. Occasionally I do charity work. You can use this money anytime, anywhere." Harry was dumbfounded. No wonder Uncle Nate didn't care to start over. He did not expect the money left by his father to be even more than what the family gave him. $28 billion plus $40 billion. In this case, I now have a fortune of $68 billion. That's too much. Harry was excited. $68 billion was equivalent to what the other 2 achieved after so much effort and in so many years. He even felt proud in his heart. So what if one is a stock genius? So what if the other is a ruthless warlord? I'm sorry, I have a father who's stronger than all of you. He finally regained his composure, becoming rich all of a sudden. It was hard to control his feelings. "Let's take out some cash first," Harry said to Nate. "Uncle Nate, the other funds will be at your disposal for investment. The profits will be..." "Harry, your father has paid me in advance." Nate shook his head and smiled. "The profits are shared. This is the rule. The salary is the salary. Uncle Nate, I know you don't lack money, but if you don't take your share of the profit, it means I'm not loyal." Harry insisted. 10% You have to take 10% no matter what, otherwise I'll feel bad. Nate felt warm in his heart. All right, then treat it like I'm borrowing it from you. I'll use it to invest and make more money. After withdrawing the money, Nate led Harry to the bank entrance. Originally, Harry wanted to have a meal with Nate. The two of them hadn't seen each other for more than 10 years, so they had a lot to talk about. But Nate explained that the transfer of assets was not a simple matter, let alone such a large sum of money. After Harry had signed the contract, he still had a lot of things to do before completing the procedures. He had to make the most of his time to complete the inheritance as soon as possible. Harry did not insist. The two agreed to have a good meeting in a few days, then parted at the door. Unexpectedly, just as Harry came out with his money case, he bumped into Stacy. Mr. Parker, what a coincidence. We meet again. Stacy had changed into another set of clothes. She wore a waist-length British suit and a short skirt. She also had applied some light makeup. She looked even more attractive than before. She walked out to the car and smiled shyly at Harry. Did you drive here? If not, let me give you a ride. Harry was somewhat speechless. How is this a coincidence? Your skirt is wrinkled, which makes it obvious that you've been waiting a long time, and still, you say it's a coincidence? This was the power of money. He thought that compared to Bella, Stacy's appearance and temperament were even more perfect. Along with her pretense of being young and naive, her charm was greater than Bella's. But the more it was like this, the more bored Harry felt. The value of life could be measured in terms of money, and the foundation of love was also money. But love itself cannot be about money. Otherwise, it was the same as prostitution. No need. I'll call a car. He called Nate, and very soon, under Stacy's disappointed gaze, a Lincoln augmented vehicle stopped in front of Harry. Sir, President Parker ordered us to send you back. The driver got out of the car and took Harry's bag. His tone was respectful. Harry nodded. He ignored Stacy, who was staring at him with anticipation, and got into the car. Stacy looked at him, downtrodden, disappointed that she had missed the opportunity to change her life. Then, she seemed to think of something and quickly got into the car. Harry returned to the dormitory. Episode 4. Taunting Harry. Harry opened the door and entered. There was no one inside. Today was Bella's birthday. Benedict invited all his classmates to her birthday party, so no one was left in the classroom. Of course, Harry was not included among those classmates. He didn't want to go anyway. He knew that Benedict would mock him if he saw him. As for Bella, that woman would value money above all else. Not only would she not defend him, but she would mock him too. Forget it, he thought. Why bother with such things? He has money now, so why bother with a woman? That was what Harry said to himself. Then he tossed his case under the bed and lay down, getting ready to sleep. Lately, he'd been up early to pick up trash, so he was beyond tired. Now that he no longer needed to worry about his life, he had to treat himself better. Just as he was about to fall asleep, his phone rang suddenly. He picked it up to take a look and saw a message on the class group chat. Benedict is awesome. Look, our table has Remy Martin worth $1,000. We also have Martel Cordon Bleu. The people in the group posted pictures. They were all extremely excited. Some students who could not get there felt envious. Everyone was admiring how rich Benedict was. The spending trend in Maryland City was not very high. Most students had to pay $750 per month and usually made a little more from their jobs. They'd never drank such expensive wine. Where's Benedict? Benedict is too generous. Someone began flattering him. Benedict went to the Rosewater Hotel with Bella. Wow, watch your words. Harry is in the group too. So what if he's in the group? He's a loser. Can't we trash talk him? That's right, he picks up trash every day. It's embarrassing for me to be in the same class as him." "Well said." Benedict suddenly appeared and sent a sum of money on the group chat with a password on it. "Guys, grab the Venmo. In the meantime, I'll help Harry take care of his ex-girlfriend." Harry was already furious, and looking at the Venmo'd money, he got even angrier. Immediately, the passcode messages flooded the screen. "Harry's a green-haired turtle. Harry's a green-haired turtle." Harry kicked the desk and stood up. They had gone too far. Benedict saw on his mobile phone that Harry is a green-haired turtle had a good impact. Satisfied, he said, "Everyone eat and drink well. Bella and I will lie down at the hotel and come later. Is Harry there? Come eat with us." Bella added, "That's right, Harry, don't hide. You can never compare to Benedict anyway." Harry's eyes burned with fury. He immediately replied, "I'm on my way." He left the campus and sat by the side of the road, waiting for a taxi. A red Chevrolet stopped beside him. Harry looked at the license plate number and found it familiar. When the window rolled down, it was indeed Stacy. "Mr. Parker, what a coincidence. We meet again." In the car, Stacy looked pleasantly surprised. Once again, Harry was speechless. She said the same thing twice in one day. Wasn't she tired? "Are you following me?" Harry said unceremoniously. What a difference from the famous trash prince in the school that everyone avoided. Harry's current net worth was tens of billions, and Stacy was one of the few people who knew about it. Wealth can make people jealous and drive them crazy. She must be following him for a reason. Stacy opened her mouth, trying to explain, but Harry didn't give her a chance. He raised his hand and interrupted her. "What do you want? Make it clear." Stacy paused for a moment. She did not expect Harry to get straight to the point. After pondering a moment, she made a decision. She said, "It's very simple. You have money. I need money. So I want to borrow from you." Harry frowned. "It's true that I have money, but why should I lend it to you?" "My father is sick. He needs money for his medical treatment. As long as you're willing to help me, I'll do anything." When Stacy talked about her father, her eyes turned red. Then she said, "I really can do anything. If you like me, I can be with you." Harry rested his chin and pondered. Money was really something that could save lives or harm people. To save her father's life, Stacy would not even hesitate to give up her dignity. Thinking about it, saving someone's life was more important. Anyway, he did not need this little bit of money. He said, "I can lend you the money, but not now. If you're not in a hurry, help me do something first." Seeing that Harry agreed, Stacy was delighted. "Mr. Parker, where are you going? I'll take you there." She even changed the way she addressed him. The meeting place was the only 5-star hotel in Maryland City, Star Moon Hotel. The hotel was located in the center of Maryland, occupying an entire 99-story skyscraper. At this point, in the private room reserved for Harry's classmates, the atmosphere was at its peak. Benedict and Bella had just arrived. "Benedict, everyone is toasting for you. We thank you for your hospitality today." "We're all classmates. You don't have to be so polite. You're in the same class as Bella, so I want to ask you all to take care of her." "You are too polite. This is what we should do." Benedict complacently drank the glass of wine he had toasted. He looked at Jen and asked, "Where is Harry? Didn't he say he was coming?" "Why do you care about him? Everyone is so happy today. He will spoil our mood if he comes." "That won't do. Harry is Bella's ex-boyfriend, and it's rare for everyone to get together like this. He has to come, so I can thank him for taking care of Bella so far." Benedict said he wanted to thank him, but his face showed malice. Obviously, he wanted Harry to come so he can humiliate him in front of everyone. At this moment, the door of the private room opened, and Harry entered. He swaggered in with his head held high. What surprised everyone, even more, was that Harry was accompanied by a beauty who could rival Bella. When everyone saw her holding Harry's arm intimately, they knew that the relationship between the two of them was not platonic. The whole room suddenly fell silent. Everyone understood that this was the battlefield between Benedict and Harry. Benedict stood abruptly, staring at Harry with a contemptuous look. Showing no sign of weakness, Harry returned the same look, and for a moment, a subtle current stirred in the private room. This did not stop the crowd from secretly sizing up the two girls who had provoked the war. If Bella's beauty was like the sun, bright and blinding, including her body and her skin, Stacy, Harry's companion, was the sultriness of the moon. She completely outclassed the main woman of today's party, Bella in all respects. To tell the truth, Bella was very nicely dressed today. She was wearing a Chanel dress, diamond heels, and her hair was decorated with crystal hairpins. She was as bright and beautiful as a princess. In comparison, Stacy wore only casual clothes from a regular brand, but still, her dignified personality shining from within could not be overshadowed by Bella's clothes. Benedict and Harry looked at each other for a while, and then suddenly smiled. "Harry, you finally came. According to the rules, you came late, so you should drink 3 glasses of wine." As he spoke, he took the glass and filled it with white wine. "That's right, you have to drink 3 glasses." Harry remained calm and quiet. He found an empty seat and motioned for Stacy to sit beside him. Seeing that Harry was goaded to drink, Stacy laughed and said, "Mr. Parker has something to do tonight. I'll drink for him." She was more beautiful than Bella anyway, but when she opened her mouth, her voice was pure and charming, making all the men present feel their hearts melt. Everyone was wondering where Harry had met such a beautiful woman. Seeing that Harry was not drinking the wine, Benedict was very unhappy. But when he looked at the charming Stacy, his heart filled with jealousy and lust. "Harry, you are too weak if you let a beauty like her drink for you. However, since the young lady has spoken, I will take a step back. You drink 2 glasses of wine, and she gets 1. Bella, who was sitting next to Benedict, had been completely ignored since Harry had brought beauty in. Bella was already upset. Now that she saw Benedict leering disgustingly, how could she not know what dirty thoughts he had? Bella was really angry. She told Harry, "Harry, you sure are a capable man. You just broke up with me and you already found such a beautiful woman. You were afraid you'd be mocked if you came to a party, so you specially hired her to help you." She glanced at Stacy and continued, "This woman's demeanor is not bad. You've probably spent all the money you've saved from picking up trash to hire her, haven't you?" Episode 5, Mr. Parker. Bella was very unhappy. Harry brought a woman even prettier than her to her own party, even though he was clearly so poor. This was her birthday, but everyone ignored her. She wanted to expose his lies. He was nothing but a trash scavenger. "Darling, Harry is the famous trash prince in our school. He deals with smelly garbage all day and doesn't have much money on him. Don't be fooled by him," Bella said to Stacy. Benedict's eyes lit up. He thought, "Why didn't I think Harry is just a poor loser? How could there be such a beautiful woman willing to follow him? She must be an actress he paid for with money. Tonight, this beautiful woman will not be able to escape." Thus, he said, "Harry, is it true what Bella said? From what website did you hire this beauty? How much did you pay?" Everyone believed that Harry would deny and find excuses. Who knew that Harry would nod and openly admit, "Yes, I hired her. I spent more than $6 million. "How much?" Everyone thought they had heard wrong. "I always thought you were an honest man, but I didn't expect you to be so boastful." Benedict first laughed out loud, and then his expression changed instantly. He felt that Harry was making fun of him. Benedict was a well-known figure in Maryland. How can Harry afford to be so arrogant? Benedict said with a vicious face, "Harry, we are all classmates here. What do you mean 6 million? Stop pretending." Harry didn't care that Benedict became hostile. He didn't seem worried at all. "I'm not as good as you. You're much better at acting than I am." "What do you mean?" Benedict shouted angrily. "Didn't you call me here today to humiliate me? But I don't like things that have been used by others, so I have to thank you. Looks like you also like to pick up trash." Harry's words stunned everyone. When they finally reacted, some people couldn't hold back their laughter. His words were very accurate, alluding to the fact that Bella had many boyfriends, and Benedict had snatched Harry's girlfriend. This was also very embarrassing. Bella slammed the table. "Benny, he's insulting us." Benedict, who was a little slow to react, immediately smashed his wine glass into the table. He said angrily, "No one in Maryland has ever dared to talk to me like that. You have some guts." Benedict walked up to Harry, looking down at him. "Let me tell you, there are 2 types of people in this society that you can't afford to offend. Those who have power or money. I have both money and power. I can make sure that you won't be let out of here today." Harry also stood up and looked at Benedict indifferently. "You have money and power. You're so amazing, aren't you? I'm also telling you that there are 2 kinds of people you can't afford to offend. That is, those who have more money and more power than you." Benedict suddenly laughed. He did not need to explain so much to Harry. "I told you not to think about leaving the hotel tonight. Of course, if you kneel and beg for mercy now, I might let you go when I'm in a good mood." Harry sneered. "Actually, if you hadn't broke up with me, I was going to give you a big surprise today. It doesn't matter if I say it now. I won't pretend anymore. I'm a billionaire." People looked at each other. What nonsense was Harry saying? Harry had a mischievous smile on his face as he said to Benedict, "You don't want me to leave the hotel. Very good." Saying this, he took out his phone and dialed a number. "Uncle Nate, can you do something for me right now?" Nate replied respectfully. "Mr. Harry, what orders do you have?" "Buy the Star Moon Hotel in Maryland City for me, right now. Then, have all the employees gather in the hotel lobby." "Yes, sir." After he hung up, Harry sat down in his chair and drank tea. The phone call just now was on speaker, so everyone heard the conversation clearly. Everyone thought the same thing. Harry had really gone crazy. The Star Moon Hotel? It was the only 5-star hotel in the entire city of Maryland, owned by the Fang Group. This hotel has made amazing profits since its opening. If it weren't for Fang Group, many people would want to get their hands on it. Not even Benedict dared to be too presumptuous here. Who did Harry think he was? To buy the Star Moon Hotel? He had gone crazy. Benedict was not in a hurry to deal with Harry. He waited for him to make a fool of himself. About 10 minutes later, someone knocked on the door of the private room. Then, a dignified man in a custom-made suit walked in. The hotel manager was named Landon Cross. He was responsible for the assets of Fang Group in Maryland. He also had connections with the underworld and had a lot of power. He was a well-known figure in Maryland. Even Benedict folks had to lower their heads and be careful of Mr. Cross. As for Benedict, he was no different from an ant in front of him. Of course, Benedict knew Mr. Cross. When he saw him enter, he was pleasantly surprised and thought to himself, "Why did Mr. Cross come here? Could it be that he came for me? If so, he should show off before him. If Mr. Cross was satisfied, he could offer his family a few projects with profits of over 100 million. So he quickly got up to greet him. Mr. Cross ignored Benedict. His eyes were fixed on Harry. He hurried to Harry and shook his hand. "Mr. Parker, I'm Mr. Cross, the manager of the Star Room Hotel. Whatever you need, just let me know." Suddenly, there was an absolute silence in the private room. "Is this for real?" Harry's classmates were shocked. This kind of thing was all fabricated in movies. Who would have thought that such a thing would happen in real life? Benedict's reaction was a bit slow, being completely confused. However, he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. Mr. Cross had so much power and influence in Maryland. He was normal to ignore Benedict, but he was respectful of Harry. Benedict did not dare to think about it, and he certainly couldn't believe that such a loser, trash collector like Harry would suddenly become a mysterious super billionaire. Mr. Cross saw no problem in bowing to Harry. He was just a representative of the Fang Group in Maryland. People thought the Fang Group was huge, but in front of the Parker family, it was like a mouse to an elephant. They were on completely different levels. Harry slowly drank his tea. When everyone had more or less digested their shock, he said, "Are all the employees here?" "Except for a few people who are on vacation. I asked everyone to gather in the lobby and wait for you to instruct them." Mr. Cross's respectful tone didn't match the fact that he was a top figure in Maryland. "All right, then let's go there." Saying this, Harry stood up and left. Stacy, who had quietly served as an arm piece, followed closely behind him. The other students looked at each other for a moment until Benedict spoke. "Let's go take a look." He did not believe and did not want to believe. In his eyes, a loser who was comparable to an ant, a scavenger, how can his status actually be equal to that of a billionaire? Under Mr. Cross's lead, Harry took the elevator specially reserved for the president of the hotel and quickly arrived downstairs. Benedict and the rest could only take the ordinary elevator to the lobby or on the first floor. When they came out, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. Hundreds of people lined up neatly and bowed to Harry standing in front of them. "Mr. President." Benedict felt dizzy and could barely stand. This wasn't true. He must be drunk. This definitely wasn't true. Bella stared, transfixed at Harry, who was standing in front of everyone, receiving their greetings. Her eyes sparkled, and her expression was complicated. It can't be, right? Is Harry really a billionaire? He is not just an ordinary billionaire. He wanted to buy the Star Moon Hotel, so he bought it. Can you imagine how powerful his background must be? He really hid his identity well. He's already so rich, so why pick up trash every day? Who knows, maybe it's a quirk of the rich. If we offended him before, will it be too late to apologize? All the students were silent, feeling regret in their hearts. Why were they so stupid before? Not only did they try to curry favor with such a wealthy man, but they even offended him. Harry asked all the employees to gather, but he had nothing to tell them. He just introduced himself and let them go. His main purpose was to intimidate these students who did not respect him. "Harry, there were some things I did wrong before. I'm sorry. I hope you won't take them to heart." Someone went forward to apologize. Seeing this, others also came, hurrying to apologize to Harry and say good things, fearing that he would hold a grudge. Harry was not angry with these people and waved to show that he did not mind. Everyone let out a sigh of relief, and they started leaving the hotel. Extremely embarrassed, Benedict said nothing. He followed behind the crowd, preparing to leave. But how could Harry let him go so easily? The anger in his heart had yet to be vented, and Benedict wanted to leave? "Stop! Benedict, who told you to leave?" Episode 6, A Setback. Benedict paused, pretending to be calm, and said, "Harry, what do you want?" "Didn't you say you wouldn't let me out of the hotel today?" "No problem. I will stay here tonight. As for you, as the boss here, I have to treat you well." Saying this, Harry then instructed Mr. Cross, "Move a bed in the middle of the lobby and let Benedict rest well here. Find some guards to watch him. Don't let anyone disturb his rest." Mr. Cross understood what he meant and nodded. "Mr. Parker, don't worry. I guarantee that he will be very satisfied. Bring me a bed for Mr. Parker's friend to rest on." As soon as he finished speaking, 7 or 8 burly guards rushed in and stared at Benedict. Benedict trembled under the gaze of these security agents and did not even dare to resist. He let them surround him in the lobby and waited for the bed to be moved over. Harry finally vented the anger in his heart. He turned and saw Bella walking towards him with a pitiful look. "Harry, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Just because Benedict was sympathetic to me, I broke up with you. Can you forgive me?" Bella's eyes were full of tears, and she looked very sincere. "Harry, I really have feelings for you. You still love me, right? Can we make up?" If he hadn't already known her true colors, Harry could have been fooled by her current appearance. What a pity that there was no medicine to cure regrets in this world. Harry was not someone to go back to his ex-girlfriend, not to mention that his ex-girlfriend had sex with someone else. Harry felt disgusted. "I'm sorry, you must have made a mistake. I don't have any feelings for you. Your true love is lying over there, so you better go and accompany him." After he finished speaking, he entered the elevator with Stacy and Mr. Cross. Bella looked at the cold elevator door that closed in front of her eyes as if it were the door to heaven. Her hope of marrying into a wealthy family had been shattered. She knew she wouldn't be with Harry anymore, and she regretted it. Disappointed, she turned away and saw Benedict surrounded by guards. Her eyes lit up again. Since she could not marry a rich man, she could reluctantly accept Benedict's conditions. She walked over, stammering, "Benny, get lost, you slut." Benedict had seen clearly how she was trying to seduce Harry right now. He wished he could cut this fickle woman into 1,000 pieces. First, she abandoned Harry to be with him. Now, she saw Harry's hidden background and wanted to be with him again. She actually dared to come back to him after being rejected. What did she take him for? Did she really think he was picking up trash? What a lowly bitch. Benedict had a bad temper. He didn't really care about Bella. He was just toying with her. Now, he had also played with Bella, so how could he love her? He yelled at her like she was a dog. Harry did not have any interest in grudges between these two people. Mr. Cross respectfully led him to the best room on the top floor. After Harry nodded in satisfaction, Mr. Cross left the room smiling and closed the door. He left Harry and Stacy inside. Harry was speechless. This, Mr. Cross really had a lot of ideas. Harry stayed in the presidential suite at the Star Moon Hotel. The interior of this suite was extremely luxurious. The bed in the master bedroom was 10 square meters, was made of high-quality yellow rosewood. Looking at Stacy, who was fidgeting to one side, Harry smiled lightly. Stacy was already nervous. Under Harry's eager eyes, she became even more frightened. She was trembling like a small animal sitting next to a ferocious beast. He was isolated from his family for 6 years and was also not allowed to have sex during those years. Now that Stacy had delivered herself to him, Harry was also willing to do something later. Although he could barely suppress the impatience in his heart, seeing that Stacy clearly did not have any sexual experience, Harry still said, "If you regret it, it's not too late to change your mind." Harry was not the type to take advantage of others when they were in trouble. If Stacy didn't want to, he wouldn't force her. Stacy had tried to prepare herself, but at this moment, she still wanted to shrink away. But thinking of her father lying on the hospital bed, she gritted her teeth and made up her mind. "I'll take a shower first." Saying that, she ran into the bathroom in a flurry. Harry smiled and walked to the balcony, looking down at the night view of the entire Maryland city. The night scenery of Maryland City was very charming. The traffic gathered together to form a belt of light that extended into the distance. Harry stared at the bustling traffic and the crowd at his feet, and there was a sense of confusion in his heart for no reason. He was a direct descendant of the Parker family, with a fortune worth tens of billions. If he could successfully obtain the right of inheritance, he could control a third of the world. He could even control the life and death of common people. But why did he feel a sense of rejection towards this boundless power and wealth? "Mr. Parker." A timid call made the confused Harry come back to his senses. He churned, and his eyes lit up. Stacy wore a loose nightgown, the slightly open top revealing her attractive chest. Her knee-length nightgown showed her slender white legs. Her slightly wet hair was draped over her shoulders, glistening seductively in the light. Her pure face was glowing red because of her shyness. She was waiting for Harry. Harry had already turned into a hungry beast and pounced on her. A crazy night followed. It wasn't until the next day at noon that Harry awoke from a deep sleep. When he opened his eyes, he saw Stacy in his arms. She sat quietly in his arms, her face still showing traces of desire. "Good morning, sleepyhead." "What time is it?" Harry asked in a daze. "It's just past 12 o'clock in the afternoon." For the past 6 years, he had gotten up early in the morning to pick up trash. It was the first time he woke up so late. Harry worried that he had become lazy. He lifted the blanket and got up. When he saw a smear of blood on the bedsheet, he was taken aback. Stacy followed his gaze, and her face flushed instantly. She hurriedly pulled the blanket to keep him from seeing it. Harry smiled. "Since you offered yourself to me, I will also fulfill my promise to you. I will go to the hospital to see your father later." Stacy, who should have been happy, now had a pale face. "This is a deal. Stacy, don't think too much. It's just a deal you're willing to make." Stacy felt a sense of loss in her heart. She stood up quietly and helped Harry get dressed. Seeing her like this, Harry second-guessed his own heart, but he didn't say anything. Mr. Cross had already prepared a fancy French meal for the two of them. After they finished enjoying the food, Mr. Cross came over and asked, "Mr. Parker, what should we do with that person in the hall?" Harry paused for a moment, then remembered that Benedict was still held in the hotel lobby. He almost forgot about him. He went down to the lobby. By this time, in order not to affect the business, the bed had already been removed. Only Benedict remained there, squatting by the fountain in the hall, not daring to move. Benedict wanted to call his father last night and asked him to come and save him. But when he thought about how Mr. Cross was so respectful in front of Harry, he didn't want his father to come over. It would have been useless anyway. His family was really famous in Maryland, but in front of the consortia that covered the whole country, they were nothing. After spending the night without closing his eyes, Benedict finally saw Harry coming down and hurried forward. "Harry, I apologize for offending you. I've already broken up with Bella. Please let me go." Benedict humbled himself, apologizing profusely. He used to show off in front of his classmates. Now that he met someone stronger than him, he instantly became a servile person. Harry could tell that Benedict was a terrible person. Right now, he has acknowledged defeat on the surface, but in his heart, he must have some evil thoughts. "Benedict, I'm not an unreasonable person. You were disrespectful to me, so I made you suffer a little. We're even now, but if you still harbor bad ideas, I will no longer subject you to petty pranks like these. I will utterly destroy the Trent family. Do you understand?" Episode 7. I'll teach you what medical ethics are. Harry taught him a lesson. If Benedict still dared to get on his nerves in the future, then he will bear the consequences. Yes, I understand. I know you don't like me, but I will definitely be a good person in the future, and I will never dare to offend you again. Benedict kept nodding and bowing like a puppet. All right, go and do what you have to do. Harry finished speaking and got Stacy out of the hotel. Mr. Cross wanted to arrange a private car for Harry, but he refused. He sat in Stacy's car and left for Maryland Hospital. The best hospital in the state was a private foundation. It was founded by the successor of a generation of medical geniuses, Mr. Gale, decades ago. It took more than 10 years of hard work and management, as well as the pioneering innovation of his descendants. After decades of hard work, Maryland Hospital had finally become a top hospital in the United States, focused on teaching, research, and treatment. Of course, the level of professionalism in the medical treatment here was high, and therefore the cost was also very high. Stacy's father suffered from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, commonly known as gradual freezing syndrome. It was a terminal illness that could not be cured by current medicine. Even the doctors here could only control and slow down its progress, but they could never cure it. The cost of this disease was like a bottomless pit. With the astronomical medical expenses at Maryland Hospital, Stacy's $6 million would probably not last long. Harry asked Stacy about this. She was silent for a long time before she slowly spoke. She had a brother, but because he liked to gamble, it caused his family to fall apart. He also lost all of his father's property. The family had to live in a dilapidated house that they rented. After her father got sick, her irresponsible brother ran away. At this moment, the whole burden fell on Stacy's shoulders, but she had no choice. For the sake of her father's life, she could only grit her teeth and carry on. Across the country, only Maryland Hospital could effectively slow the spread of this disease, but the astronomical fees were not something Stacy could bear alone on her thin shoulders. But she could not see her father walking towards death, so she could only choose to give up her dignity to beg Harry for funds. She borrowed $6 million from him, knowing that this money couldn't last long, but she felt she could only get that much with her body. When Harry heard this, he was speechless. He had been collecting garbage for 6 years, and in the eyes of others, he was already very miserable. But, after all, there was an incomparably large family behind him. Moreover, he had no burden. Collecting garbage to earn a living was enough for a person's daily life. But Stacy was different. She used her frail shoulders to cover the medical expenses for her father. At this point, Harry's impression of Stacy had changed a lot. This was a girl who looked weak on the outside, but had a decisive personality and a strong heart. Maryland Hospital was located in the suburbs of Maryland City and was surrounded by mountains and natural lakes, forming a lovely landscape. While receiving treatment here, patients could also experience the beautiful environment around them. This made them feel relaxed, and it was beneficial for their recovery. Many patients chose this place for treatment. Not only were the medical standards here high, but the environment was also very important. Successfully borrowing money meant that her father's life was also extended. Stacy was extremely happy due to this. She brought Harry to her father's ward. When she opened the door, she discovered that somebody else was living there. Stacy panicked. "Why isn't my father here?" In a panic, she pulled a nurse who was passing by and asked, sobbing, "Where's my dad? Where did you take him? Was he dead?" Stacy could not ask this out loud, nor could she accept it. The nurse frowned and pushed Stacy's hand away. "You are Ronald's family, right? Your father is in the treatment room." Stacy felt a little relieved. She pulled Harry and ran to the treatment room. When she opened the door, she saw a scene that made her very angry. Her father, who was supposed to be there for treatment, was left by himself in the corner of the room. He sat alone on the cold metal chair, his head bowed, looking very lonely and miserable. "Dad, are you okay? Why did they bring you here?" Stacy rushed him and knelt in front of him, crying bitterly. Unfortunately, her father had lost his ability to speak. He could only use all his strength to lift his head slightly. Seeing that it was his daughter, 2 lines of tears ran down his cheeks. This scene made Harry, who was watching from the side, feel extremely sad. The most unfortunate thing in the world was when the parents were seriously ill, but the children could do nothing. His parents died young, and this type of grief was something he had known for a long time. When she saw her father abandoned in a corner, the anger in Stacy's heart boiled over. Seeing the attending physician walk down the hall, she rushed forward in rage. "Dr. Derek, explain to me, why did you leave my father here and put someone else in his ward?" The doctor named Derek was shocked by Stacy's sudden appearance. He paused for a moment and pushed his glasses back. Miss Stacy, I'm helpless about this. Your father's treatment fees have been exhausted for a long time, and there are many patients in the hospital. Your father cannot continue to occupy the ward, can he? Episode 8, Rejected. So after the hospital management decided we had to get your father out of the ward and let other patients stay there. Bullshit! I send money to the hospital every month. How come there are no more treatment fees? Dr. Derek said coldly. Your money is not even enough to pay for the hospital bed, let alone the treatment. Of course, the hospital did not leave your father behind. You see, all of your father's expenses during this time were raised by the hospital's medical staff. And it's not a small fee either. Stacy was so angry that her body swayed. If Harry hadn't supported her in time, she would have fallen to the ground. Now I have brought money. Quickly arrange the ward and treatment for her father, Harry said bluntly. Are you Miss Stacy's boyfriend? Dr. Derek asked. No, we're just friends, Stacy, who had recovered, hurried to say. Harry looked at her and said nothing. He's not your boyfriend. If he's just a friend, how much can he give you? I see this gentleman is wearing regular clothes. He doesn't seem to have much money either. If you're trying to help Miss Stacy because you want to pursue her, I advise you to think rationally, Dr. Derek said with a cold smile. Do you know what her father's disease is? Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is a terminal disease that has no cure. He must remain in the hospital for the rest of his life. Every day, the expenses amount to tens of thousands. You can help her for a while, but can you help her for the rest of her life? Just looking at the clothes you're wearing, I can tell you're a country bumpkin without money. How can you afford it? Harry smiled. Treatment fees of tens of thousands a day were a terrible expense for ordinary people. They could not afford it at all. As for Harry, under Nate's management, the huge capital of tens of billions of dollars could generate more than $100,000 per second. Couldn't afford the treatment. It was ridiculous how this man came to these conclusions all by himself, thought Harry. I'm a man of my word. I'll give you $6 million first. Set up the ward for her father's treatment right away, Harry said with a sneer. $6 million? Where did you get the money from? Dr. Derek was stunned. This person was clearly the type of loser who wastes time on the streets. He actually said he'll give them $6 million? What are you spacing out for? $6 million is not enough? And $10 million, is that enough? Harry felt that he had nothing to discuss with this type of person. He could just throw money at them. $10 million? Dr. Derek felt a little dizzy. This kind of situation was too much. As a doctor, over the years, he had seen all sorts of people selling their properties to pay for treatment. Some have even led to the company's bankruptcy because of this. But no one directly put out $10 million for treatment fees. After recovering from his confusion, Dr. Derek felt that this man was definitely playing with him. His clothes showed that he had no money, so how could he get $10 million? Episode 9, Buying a Hospital. Dr. Derek didn't believe it all. He waved his hand and said, not to mention $10 million, even if you bring $100 million today, he still can't stay. Harry said angrily, what do you mean? How could the hospital be full? He is already here, so that means there has to be a space. There are no free wards at this moment. You have seen it too. The hospital is full of people, and they are all here to see a doctor. I can't just kick them out and give it to you, Dr. Derek said calmly, his expression a little strange. Dr. Derek, I apologize for my bad attitude right now. Please, find a way to arrange a reserve for my father. I brought money today, and I will pay you regularly, Stacy said anxiously. Her father's treatment could not be delayed, but the hospital was full now, which made her panic a little. It's useless to be anxious. It's not like I took the money. It doesn't have much to do with me, but this ward. Dr. Derek deliberately lowered his tone as he sized Stacy from head to toe. He estimated that Stacy was quite pretty, and her figure was also of the highest quality. Now that he had forced her to this extent, he thought it would be very easy for him to take her down. Then he bent down and whispered in Stacy's ear, "If you want your father to stay in the ward, then go to the 7 Days Hotel tonight. You know my number." Stacy was shocked. She thought she heard him wrong. What did Dr. Derek mean? He made it very clear. In fact, he used her father to blackmail her into sleeping with him. Stacy would never have thought that the doctor, who seemed so sanctimonious, was actually such a shameless person. She subconsciously looked at Harry for help, but then she thought Harry could do nothing about it. Although he had money, her father's life was in Dr. Derek's hands. This was not something to be solved with money. Forget it. She had already sold her body once for the treatment fee. If she did it once, she could do it a second time. This was her fate. Stacy closed her eyes painfully, ready to accept Dr. Derek's request. But a pair of warm hands pressed on her shoulders. When she opened her eyes, she saw Harry's firm and confident gaze. Harry pressed on Stacy's shoulder, indicating that she should not speak. "Are you sure that the hospital is full and that there are no vacancies?" Although Harry did not hear what Dr. Derek said to Stacy, he could tell his intentions when he saw his lewd expression. Using her dying father as leverage was scummy of the lowest sort. This Dr. Derek was nothing more than a slimeball. Stacy had intercourse with Harry. Therefore, she was his woman. If anyone dared to touch his woman, he would never let them go. How many times do you want me to tell you? There aren't any. How can I knowingly not let her father live? Besides, you're not her boyfriend. Why do you care about her so much? Dr. Derek said impatiently. Then he whispered to Harry, "Don't interfere. If you dare to ruin my plans, I won't forgive you." Harry sneered and said, "What do you want?" "I want her. Either she will sleep with me or she will take her father and leave. If you interfere, I'll have someone kill you when you get out of the hospital." Dr. Derek threatened, thinking that Harry, who was still a young man, would be scared. The next moment, Harry took out his phone and dialed a number. "Uncle Nate, can we buy Maryland Sanctuary Hospital?" Nate was a little surprised, but tried to remember what he knew about Maryland Sanctuary Hospital. Then he said, "Maryland Sanctuary Hospital is a family business of the Gale family. It is not listed on the market. Moreover, the profit of this hospital is very high. If they do not want to sell it, just tell me if you can buy it or not." Nate smiled and said, "No one dares not to give the Parker family what it wants." "Then you have half an hour," Harry said with satisfaction. 20 minutes is enough. Wait for my news." Harry finished talking with Uncle Nate and hung up. Hearing their conversation, Dr. Derek laughed out loud. "You should be an actor. You're very good. You want to buy Maryland Sanctuary Hospital? Are you kidding me? Do you know how much Maryland Sanctuary Hospital is worth? Only this name is worth hundreds of millions. You say you want to buy it and it will only take half an hour? You really make me laugh." Harry didn't bother with him. Anyway, the owner of this hospital would change in half an hour, and at that time, Dr. Derek would not be laughing anymore. "Miss Stacy, I see your friend has a mental problem. He is full of nonsense. Think of my suggestion. As long as you serve me well, arranging a ward for your father will be very easy to manage." Stacy knew that Harry was very rich, but she was still shocked by his generosity. He could buy a famous hospital at will. He didn't care about money at all. That must mean he's richer than she thought. She wondered if it was because of her that he decided to buy the hospital. All kinds of feelings emerged in her heart. She was touched, feeling sweet, but also a little sour. After all, the social gap between them was too great. How could an ordinary girl like her compare to Harry, who was from a wealthy family? No, she was crazy to think that Harry actually cared for her. Besides, she had nothing to offer that would be of any worth. Someone as rich as Harry could get whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. Seeing that Stacy did not say anything, Dr. Derek lost his patience. He said, "It doesn't matter if you don't want to. You take your father and leave quickly. Our hospital won't accept him. You didn't even grasp the opportunity I gave you. You really don't want what's good for you." That being said, Dr. Derek was getting ready to leave. Just as he turned around, he saw the dean walking down the corridor with a group of people. They were hurrying towards him. This is a surprise to be sure, but it will help to get this help out of the way. The dean of Maryland Sanctuary Hospital was the current patriarch of the Gale family. He had great authority in the hospital, but usually the activity of the hospital was handled by the general manager. Dr. Derek has seen President Gale only a few times a year. He did not expect to meet with President Gale today and thought he was here for inspection. He wanted to assert himself so that he could be promoted to the director of the department. A position like that and he would be set for life, no longer needing to take money under the table. Dr. Derek thought for a while and approached him with a flattering smile. He said, "Are you here for an inspection today?" Surely it couldn't be for anything else but an inspection. President Gale ignored him. He was just an attending physician, and Director Gale didn't even know who he was. He reached out and pushed him aside. He pushed Dr. Derek against the wall, like he was nothing more than a closed door in his way. A thing, an object not worth acknowledging. "I didn't know you were coming to our hospital. It was rude of me to not greet you," President Gale said respectfully to Harry. Dr. Derek was completely stunned. What could this mean? Who is this kid? Why would President Gale, who had always been reserved, greet him with such respect? Was there something wrong? Could it be that President Gale had mistaken him for someone else? Did you mistake him for someone else? How could he be the Harry Parker you were talking about? Dr. Derek went forward and kindly reminded him. There was no way this child would have the power to garner such respect from President Gale. President Gale told Dr. Derek in a low voice, "I have to be attentive to him, and your tone is too unpleasant. Don't cause me any trouble." Harry knew that Uncle Nate should have done his job. He told President Gale, "I want to buy your hospital. I don't care how much it costs, but it has to be done today. Don't bother with the formalities and procedures. My assistant will take care of the matter. If you buy our hospital, then I'm sure you'll compensate us handsomely. We will definitely do it as soon as possible." Episode 10, Arrogance. After being scolded by President Gale, Dr. Derek did not dare say anything. He could only stand aside, feeling dejected. Listening slightly while the two conversed about the selling of the hospital, Harry actually bought the hospital. Not only did President Gale not reject him, he even looked honored and was very respectful. This massive hospital with all its staff just sold at the drop of a hat. Who was this guy? But Dr. Derek was dumbfounded. He really bought it? How is this possible? He's clearly just a country bumpkin. Hearing him mutter to himself, President Gale could not stop his anger. Who hired this man? What if he offended Mr. Parker and dragged him into this? Harry didn't have a good temper either. He could not remain indifferent when Dr. Derek spoke ill of him. He told President Gale, Dr. Derek not only wanted to kick out a patient who was being treated here, but he also tried to force my friend to sleep with him. President Gale, how do you run the hospital? How can that be? Sir, Mr. Parker, don't worry. I'll fire him right away, President Gale said immediately. Do not worry. Dr. Derek said he's done this more than once. I think that in addition to forcing the patient's family members to sleep with him, he must have done many bad things. He must be severely punished, not to mention that he threatened me right now. He said he would have someone kill me when I got out of the hospital. Let's call the police to arrest him. You're right. He must be severely punished. President Gale wiped the sweat from his face, feeling a lingering fear in his heart. Dr. Derek was an idiot. If Mr. Parker was angry because of him, President Gale would not only lose the hospital, but he could even lose his life. This matter had to be dealt with, and swiftly. When Dr. Derek heard this, he was scared silly. He knew he had misjudged and offended someone he shouldn't have. Some kid who looked like nobody was actually somebody. A somebody with lots of power and influence to buy a hospital without a second thought. Surely this kid had a heart and would forgive him for his past aggressions. He immediately knelt down on the ground and cried. Mr. Parker, I was wrong. I was really wrong. I was not thinking clearly when I said all that nonsense. Please forgive me. President Gale, help me say something for him. I really didn't mean to offend Mr. Parker. Please don't fire me. President Gale stood there coldly, thinking, why should I help you? Who do you think you are? You deserve to be punished for provoking Mr. Parker. Far as President Gale was concerned, this man was nothing more than scum and should be treated as such. Seeing that Harry and President Gale did not even look at him, Dr. Derek rolled his eyes and knelt again before Stacy. Miss Stacy, it's my fault. I shouldn't have kicked your dad out of the ward, and I shouldn't have offended you. Please help me beg Mr. Parker to spare me. I will arrange a ward for your father right now. Stacy hated him very much and didn't care if he lived or died. On the contrary, she was very happy when she saw him being embarrassed by Harry. How low could this wretched man go? First, he blackmails me to sleep with him, or my father dies, and now he wants me to defend him. This is truly pathetic coming from a doctor of all people. What Stacy had to say next gave her all the joy she could muster. Dr. Derek, you've been fired from the hospital now. So what right do you have to set up a ward? Wait outside for the police to come. You should reflect on yourself in prison for the rest of your life. President Gale did not want to hear him cause trouble here, so he asked the security guards to take him out. Take this scum outside and wait for the police to arrive. Mr. Parker, you came today for Miss Stacy's father, didn't you? Don't worry. I will arrange the best ward for him now, and he will be given the best treatment. Harry nodded, satisfied. Suddenly, he saw Nate coming out of the elevator. Uncle Nate, why are you here? Harry was surprised by his speed. In fact, after Nate contacted the Gale family, he took a helicopter, flew over, and landed on the hospital's helipad. Then he immediately came to find Harry. Sir, the purchase of the hospital is an important matter for the Gale family. I wanted to talk to them personally, Nate said. Take care of this issue for me, please. The Gale family has run Maryland Sanctuary Hospital pretty well. Give them a portion of the shares and let them keep the hospital's management rights. Harry considered Dr. Derek's case an exception. He believed in the Gale's family's ability to run the hospital. Otherwise, it would not have a good reputation. Therefore, the Gale family had to retain some of its shares and management rights. After all, hospitals had to be managed and operated by experienced people. Cutting out everything they had built over the years was something you couldn't just remake or buy. President Gale said gratefully, Mr. Parker, on behalf of the Gale family, thank you for your trust. The Gale family had run Maryland Sanctuary Hospital for several generations. Normally, if someone wanted to buy it, they would not be willing to accept it. However, they could not afford to offend the Parker family, so how could they disagree? His family name carried a lot of weight, making the impossible seem like child's play. But Harry was willing to give up a portion of the shares to them, so the Gale family didn't have to leave the hospital. A most generous offer, to be sure. How could anyone say no to such a lucrative deal such as that? Now, instead of handling the cost, they were given a share of the profits. Harry thought for a moment and said, Uncle Nate, I have an idea. Didn't you say you set up a charity foundation on my behalf? I want to use the money from the fund to treat those patients with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis for free. Nate said with admiration, Sir, your heart is as good as your father's, but this issue is not easy to solve. After all, the expense is endless. Moreover, people's feelings are different. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is a terminal disease that has no cure. If you offer free medical treatment and something happens to the patient, their family members will definitely blame us. We could be blamed, even if we did something good. Nate was experienced and attentive to many things. President Gale agreed with him and said it was true. Harry thought for a moment. That was indeed a problem. Even though he was kind enough to offer free treatment, the terminal illness could not be cured. They can only prolong the patient's life, which in some cases would be seen as good, but others might not see it that way. There will always be ungrateful people venting their anger on the hospital when the patient can't be cured. After thinking for a while, Harry said, "Then we will offer this free treatment program as usual, but patients and their families will apply themselves, and it will be provided according to certain standards. As for Stacy's father, we will give him free treatment directly, and the charity fund will pay the fees." Harry felt helpless. No wonder there were fewer and fewer people doing good deeds in society. Sometimes doing good deeds would cause a lot of trouble. Sighing, Harry stood in front of the window. Honestly, he bought Maryland Sanctuary Hospital because he was too emotional. However, it did not matter to him. Buying this hospital cost him only a little money in the grand scheme of things. He did not expect the hospital to make any profit. He was just willful for once. If having money means you can't do good deeds, then there's no need in having any at all. Harry knew what it was like to live without money. Now he wanted to change what it meant to live with money. This society places too much emphasis on money and wealth, but Harry felt it's a burden. Squandering some money was actually quite satisfying to him, being able to help people that could not help themselves. Especially people who have a rare and incurable disease. Why should they suffer the financial burden alone? Harry thought about his morals and how they would play out in society now that he was wealthy. His frivolous spending showed that money was no object to him and that morality is all that really matters in this world. Episode 11. Preparations. The matter had basically come to an end. It was time for Harry to return home. "Mr. Parker, I want to stay here and take care of my father for a period of time," Stacy said haltingly. "Okay, you don't have to worry about the fees anymore. I have already instructed. The doctors here will treat your father for free." "Thank you, Mr. Parker. I really don't know how to repay you." Stacy was so excited that she cried again. Harry smiled and waved his hand. He didn't say anything else and said goodbye to her. Nate handled the purchase procedures in the hospital. Harry took the special car that he had arranged for him to return to the school. As soon as he entered the dormitory, his roommate Barry pounced on him and hugged Harry's thigh as he howled, "Let's be friends." Harry was shocked by his appearance. "What are you doing? Why are you pretending? The people who came back from the gathering yesterday all spread the news. They said you're a billionaire from a super family. Benedict was humiliated by you." Harry was speechless. He felt that after he inherited part of the family and his father's assets, he had become a little irrational these 2 days. Buying a hotel and a hospital all to prove a point that he wasn't some street rat and that people should respect him? Could it be that he had been picking up trash for 6 years? Had he been suppressing his emotions too much? Always letting the name-calling and abuse roll off him while he picked through the trash? Did he close off his heart too much that it became tainted or had become stronger? Or could money really make people act differently? Actually, Harry did not like that kind of arrogant and despotic, hedonistic appearance. He preferred a more ordinary and simple life. It was also because of his 6 years of poor life. He had experienced the disdain, ridicule, rolling his eyes, and difficulties that he had never experienced before. It had given Harry a deeper understanding of life. He had also made many friends who had gone through hardships together and helped him in times of need. This kind of precious and sincere friendship could not be bought with money. It was just like Bernard in front of him, who was nicknamed Barry. Ever since they had first met, he had never looked down on him because he picked up trash. Instead, he had given him a lot of help in every aspect. He sincerely treated Harry as his classmate, or even as his brother, someone Harry could trust, and likewise know that he was trusted by Barry. Keeping a secret like he is wealthy might be a bad idea in the long run. Was preserving the friendship the way it was at the risk of it falling apart later because of the lie worth it? If Barry knew his true identity, would this precious friendship be discounted or degraded? It was hard to predict the human heart. No one can guarantee that they would not change under the temptation of money. Harry felt uneasy at the thought of money corrupting him somehow. That couldn't happen, could it? Harry knew what it was like to be poor and mistreated because of what people do to survive. Having access to all this money now was a temptation no one could pass up, but it could have its consequences. Harry did not want his relationship with Barry to change in the future, so he decided to hide his true identity. "That's right, I'm a billionaire, super billionaire," Harry pretended to be joking and said. Barry looked at him like he was caring for a moron. "Wake up." In fact, he did not believe it at all. A total of 7 or 8 people went to the gathering last night. There was no evidence. Harry's attire was still very tacky. Billionaires always wore branded goods, wore watches, and drove a sports car. Harry was a billionaire? Impossible. The guy who rummaged through trash all through school, a billionaire? Either he's lying or people have been throwing solid gold bricks into the trash. Barry wasn't the only one who didn't believe it. Apart from the people who saw it with their own eyes last night, none of them believed it. Just look at Harry. His clothes are bland and he does nothing to bolster his appearance. Don't all those rich celebrities do whatever they can to stand out? Harry wanted to say a few more words to tease Barry, but at that moment, the dormitory door was pushed open. Felton ran in with a face full of excitement, and before he could catch his breath, he started to shout, "We can have a social with that girl's dormitory. Jacob's girlfriend agreed." Barry was so happy that he almost jumped up. Harry's dormitory had 4 people. Jacob's family situation was not bad, and he could be considered a young entrepreneur. He found a girlfriend from the arts department. The other 3 were all poor. Of course, Harry was no longer a poor person. He was rich beyond belief, which makes things complicated. Would he still have his friends if they found out he was rich, or would they constantly nag him for money? Even Harry, who was picking up trash, had found a girlfriend for some time ago, even though he was betrayed in the end. As for the other 2, Barry and Felton were still single. Their requirements for their girlfriends gradually decreased. Widening the net, so to speak, couldn't be single if all you're looking for is a pulse. But once the standards dropped again and again, they were still single. Therefore, they urged Jacob all day long to contact his girlfriend's dormitory to come out for a social gathering. There were many girls in the arts department, and all of them were way out of their league. His roommates would have to get pretty lucky for any of those girls to ever notice them. The 4 people in Jacob's girlfriend's dormitory were even more beautiful. Felton and Barry shouted excitedly. Jacob arrived late. He entered the dormitory and smiled proudly. Tonight at 7 o'clock in the karaoke bar. After they finish shopping, they will go there and wait for us to dress up. Barry and Felton stood at attention and saluted. Jacob saw that Harry was watching by the side and did not move, so he said to him, "Harry, didn't you break up with Bella? Don't be too sad. You'll go with us later. My wife's side is a beauty in the dormitory. She's not worse than Bella. Later, you go over and you try your best to get a girl. Yeah, Harry, although you don't have any money, you're handsome. Hurry up and change into better clothes." Harry looked at the clothes he had bought from the stall and opened his hands. "These are my best clothes." Harry didn't think they were bad-looking clothes. Maybe a little average, but who wanted to stand out anyway? Jacob was not satisfied. "This is a rare opportunity. You're wearing this way to get out of here. Don't you want to lower our image as a whole?" There were 4 people in Harry's dormitory. Barry and Felton had a good relationship with Harry. They did not care that Harry would pick up rubbish all day long. However, Jacob and him usually looked all right, but Harry could sense that there was actually a sense of rejection in his heart. "Why don't you guys go, actually?" Before Harry could finish, Barry shouted, "Harry, you must go. This is a dormitory where loads of chicks will be there. We have to work together. How can you be a deserter?" In fact, after Barry and Felton's excitement had passed, they had already calmed down. They were all ordinary people who could be seen everywhere on the street. They were not handsome, and their family conditions were average. Ordinary girls wouldn't like them, and especially the hot ones wouldn't like them either. Jacob wasn't on the same level as them. If Harry did not go, just the two of them going with Jacob would make Jacob the center of attention. Harry was different. Although he was poor, he was handsome. If Harry went, they would all crowd around just to talk to Harry, ignoring his friends. Jacob's phone rang. It was a video call from his girlfriend. Jacob saw it and went outside with his phone. I have an appointment with them. Tell your roommates not to dress too ugly. To be honest, I really don't want to host this gathering. The people in your dorm are too ordinary. Except for that Harry who looks all right. In the end, he's still a person who picks up trash every day. The other two don't look good. My friends won't like them. Episode 12. Out of Their League. Jacob didn't like Harry picking up trash, but he had a good relationship with the three of them. He explained, "Don't say that. My roommates are actually quite nice. They're all very enthusiastic and good at taking care of people. When Harry and He Tinging were together, he saved $3,000 from picking up trash and bought a new phone for her. He was reluctant to eat and drink." Jacob's girlfriend Colleen pursed her lips. "No matter how good he is, he's still a loser. We use 4,000 or 5,000 won of cosmetics every month. If we look down on people in your dorm tonight, won't everyone lose face? To be honest, your roommates aren't good enough for my sisters." This, Jacob thought about it and felt that his girlfriend was telling the truth. Barry and Felton had begged him for a long time. Besides, they had already booked him for tonight. If he refused to go, he would lose face. "All right, you don't have to worry about it. Anyway, we have already made an appointment. Let's do it this time." Colleen saw that her boyfriend was in a difficult position, so she did not say anything else. "Okay, thank you." 7 o'clock at night at the karaoke bar. A few girls who were tired from shopping sat inside to rest. They were Colleen's 4 roommates. These 4 girls were all in their youth, plus they were all art students. Being art students meant they naturally had a talent for all things beautiful, and this included their own appearance. They were equally fair and beautiful, and their figures were tall and slender. Because of the social gathering, they were specially dressed up tonight, especially the girl in the pure white dress with a pair of soft eyebrows and almond-shaped eyes. A slight smile was enough to make one's heart pound, and the pair of calves exposed under the skirt were as long and straight as a pencil. The 4 girls attracted the attention of the entire karaoke bar, but they did not notice or bothered worrying about it. This kind of thing happened all the time. At this moment, they were chattering away about the day they had. Jen had just brought up the situation earlier in the day when some guy stole her drink. "Jen, do you think the boy who stole your drink yesterday did it on purpose? Seeing you drink half of it and walk away, so he stole your drink and took advantage of you? Could it be that he wanted to have an indirect kiss with you? How disgusting." "That's right. Isn't he a pervert? Stealing a drink from a girl, he probably doesn't speak with girls ever." "Do you know who he is?" "I know a senior from the sports department. Do you want to find him and teach him a lesson?" Jen smiled and shook her head. "I don't know him. Actually, it's not a big deal. At the time, I was quite angry. Now that I think about it, the boy was sweating all over. He probably couldn't hold back his thirst." "Then he can't take someone else's water to drink. A bottle of water is only a few dollars. In my opinion, he's a pervert." "Hey, let's not talk about this anymore. Colleen, why haven't your boyfriend and the others arrived yet? Furthermore, we don't know what kind of situation they're in." "Yeah, but Colleen's boyfriend family is quite rich. He's also quite good looking. Everyone says that there are many entrepreneurs in the management department. The ones who came this time are all tall, rich, and handsome, right? Hey, then I have to perform well. See if there's any problem with my makeup. If not, I'll make up for it." "What do you want makeup for? You really want to hook a rich boyfriend and become a rich wife. Don't you want to?" Other than Jen, who had a calm expression, the other 2 women took out their cosmetics glasses and kept putting on makeup. Colleen smiled bitterly in her heart. What kind of high-quality person was there? Other than her boyfriend, the other 3 were all losers. When they met, the sisters might even complain about them being such losers. If she were to tell the truth now, they would probably leave before they met. The boyfriend's side would definitely be ugly. Forget it. Anyway, it was almost time. They would have a meal together. She thought about it, but in the end, she did not say it out loud. Outside the restaurant, Harry and the other three had just gotten out of the taxi when Jacob called for them to go in. Harry saw Nate's car parked diagonally across the road. He said to the three of them, "You guys go in first. I have something to do. Wait a moment." Barry teased, "Harry, don't run away. We need you to use your charm the way you snagged your ex, Bella." Harry smiled and watched the three of them enter the restaurant. Then he turned around and walked away. "Babe, we're here. Jen, Sasha, Helena, hello." After Jacob found his wife's roommate, he smiled and greeted them. "Coming." Colleen's roommates, Sasha and Helena, excitedly stood up and looked over. They only took a glance and the excitement disappeared. Jacob didn't say his friends were attractive, but he also didn't say they were this ugly. When Barry saw the girls, his dark red face turned purple. He stared at the girls with his eyes fixed on them. His nostrils were still breathing heavily, like a bull in heat. Delton was even more excited. His face was full of smiles, and the pockmarks on his face made him smile even uglier than when he was crying. Seeing the two of them being so hungry for something other than just food that they did not care about food, the girls were so scared that their faces turned pale. Jacob wished he could slap these two disappointing things to death. He forced a smile and tried to smooth things over. The two of them don't really know how to communicate with girls. They're actually quite good people. You'll understand once you get to know them. Sasha and Helena almost rolled their eyes. Who would be willing to understand something like this? Colleen quickly interrupted. "Everyone is here. Quickly, sit down. Why are there only 3 of you? Where's the other one?" Jacob said, "When we came in just now, Harry said he had something to do and he'll be here soon." After he finished speaking, he brought Barry and Felton to sit down. The scene was a little cold. No one on the girls' side was willing to speak. The 2 hanging girls on the boys' side were so nervous that their legs were shaking. As the organizer of the gathering, Jacob was more or less familiar with the girls. The task to liven up the atmosphere naturally fell on him. "Only Harry is left. Let's not wait for him. Let's order food first. The ladies can order whatever they want to eat. I'll treat you tonight." Jacob was a tall and handsome young man after all. The girls did not like Barry and Felton. They did not have a bad impression of Jacob, not to mention that he was Colleen's boyfriend. They gave him a sour expression and took the menu and started to order. During this time, Sasha whispered to Colleen, "Colleen, did you already know that your boyfriend's roommates were this ugly? We would not have come if we knew that they were all kind of losers." Colleen smiled bitterly and explained, "They're not all like this. Harry, who hasn't come, is actually quite handsome." Outside the restaurant, Nate saw Harry walk over. He walked out of the car and respectfully said, "Mr. Parker, the purchase procedures of the hospital have been completed. These are the relevant documents that need your signature." Harry was surprised. So fast. Harry knew he wanted the matter handled swiftly, but it had only been half a day. Uncle Nate sure knew his way around a business deal. Nate smiled and said, "Mr. Parker's instructions were very clear. I will definitely do it as soon as possible." After signing, Harry remembered and instructed again, "I still want to live a peaceful life. I will definitely keep a low profile normally. In the future, when you come to me, you should try to avoid people I know around me." "Understood, Mr. Parker. Don't worry. I will inform the family as well. I won't let them disturb Mr. Parker." Harry nodded his head in satisfaction, then turned around and walked into the restaurant. After he found Jacob's table, Jen, coincidentally, also raised her head. Both of their eyes met and were instantly stunned. Episode 13. A Luxury Car. "It's you!" Harry and Jen said at the same time. "Harry, you are finally here. Do you know each other?" Jacob asked curiously. "Jen, do you know this handsome guy?" Sasha, her roommate, asked. When she saw Harry, her eyes lit up. This guy was so handsome, but when she took a closer look at his clothes, she immediately lost interest. What was the use of being handsome? One look at him and she could tell that he was poor. "He's the trash boy who stole my drink." "Yes," Harry said. "What?" Everyone was shocked. Harry smiled bitterly. It was really rare to meet someone who picked up a bottle of Sprite and drank it secretly. Now they actually met again during the dorm gathering. The girls immediately whispered to each other, "It's actually him. This person is quite handsome. I didn't expect him to be such a thing. Seriously, he's quite handsome, but he ended up doing such a thing. Just look at his clothes and you'll know he's a country bumpkin." In an instant, Harry became the target of everyone. Barry and Felton secretly heaved a sigh of relief. With Harry attracting the fire, the two of them were not so nervous anymore. It must be a misunderstanding. It's rare to get everyone together and have a party tonight. Let's forget about this unpleasant thing Jen and Harry seemed to share. Jacob smiled and tried to smooth things over. Although he did not like Harry, he was the one who started the party today. He could not just let it go to ruin because Harry was careless. Jen was indeed surprised when she saw Harry, but when she thought of the occasion today, she did not say anything else and sat down again. Harry did not take this matter seriously in his heart. He smiled and found a seat to sit down. However, they were sitting at a round table in the gathering. The boys and girls sat on one side of the table, and the remaining empty seat happened to be beside Jen. Harry openly sat down. Jen secretly frowned and tactically agreed that Harry would sit next to her. The scene that had been heated up with great difficulty suddenly became cold again. Everyone did not know what to say and felt a little awkward. Colleen, on the other hand, spoke first. "Jen, your singing sounds so good. Why don't you sing on stage?" Jen learned how to dress, and her voice was very pleasant. At least, that's what her mother told her growing up. No matter what song she sang, it was very pleasant. It was just that she usually did not show it. She felt a little uncomfortable sitting with Harry, so she nodded in agreement. Just as she stood up, a drunk boy walked over. He pretended to be unsteady and leaned against Jen. The wine glass in his hand was splashed onto Jen's dress. Harry reacted quickly and supported him. The wine spilled onto Harry's clothes as well. "Brother, be careful where you walk." Matthew was having dinner with his friends today and had his eyes on Jen. He had come here to find an excuse to strike up a conversation with her. Seeing that his plan had been ruined, he said angrily, "Where did this wild dog come from? I'm walking. It's none of your business." Harry was also angry. "Watch your mouth." Jen knew that this person was here to take advantage of her. She had a good impression of Harry, who had stood up for her. She saw that the two of them had a conflict because of her, so she pulled Harry's sleeve and said to Matthew, "Be polite with your words." Matthew laughed and said, "Sure, as long as a pretty lady gives me a kiss and comes over to my place to drink a few glasses of wine, I will definitely be polite." Matthew and the others at the table immediately jeered. Colleen anxiously poked Jacob and said, "Go and say something." Unexpectedly, Jacob just sat there quietly and did not dare to move. He whispered, "I know him. He's Matthew, a senior of our school's business department. His family has a strong background. If he finds out who I am and I stand up to him, there goes a lot of my connections. We can't afford to offend him." Barry and Felton also sat there quietly, not daring to move. They were scared when they saw that there were many people in front of them. "I'm not much of a drinker, but I'm a singer. I'm going to sing on stage now. Don't block the way," Jen said. Matthew's eyes lit up. The pretty lady wants to sing. Everyone applaud. The boys at his table immediately howled and clapped. Seeing Jen walking over with her head lowered, Matthew sneered and stretched out his finger. He pointed at Harry's chest and said, "Kid, don't be blind. If you dare to provoke me again, I will teach you a lesson." Harry smiled. "You can try." "All right, kid, you have guts. Be careful when you go out later." Matthew sneered and looked at Harry with a threatening look before returning to his table. Harry didn't mind and returned to his seat. Barry came over and whispered, "Harry, this Matthew is not someone to be trifled with. You should leave now to avoid suffering later." Harry, however, had a calm expression on his face. "It's fine. What can he do to me?" As a direct descendant of Parker family, even he was thrown outside by his family to pick up trash. It was not something an ant like Matthew could casually ride on his neck. In the eyes of Jacob and the others, Matthew was a wealthy young guy that they could not afford to offend. However, in front of Harry, A strong aunt was no different from an aunt. Jen's singing came over. She sang a song called Devil and Angel. Her soft voice was very pleasant to listen to. The conflict she had been the victim of just now had made the atmosphere very tense, so she wanted to use the time to sing to calm everyone's emotions. At the very least, she could not let the conflict continue to intensify. After singing a few songs, Matthew's eyes lit up. He thought that he must have her. Her singing is too good. After the song was finished, Jen walked back from the stage and Matthew also walked over. Honey, your singing is really good. Come and sit at my table. What is there to talk about with those smelly losers? Sasha and Helena were determined to find a rich trust fund baby so they could be set for life. Naturally, their eyes were very sharp. Seeing that Matthew had an extraordinary background, they had an idea in their hearts. They looked at Harry and the others again, and the more they looked at them, the more they found them to be unpleasant to the eye. They smiled and said, Hey, handsome, you're only going to invite Jen and not us? Matthew looked at them and saw that they were also very attractive. He smiled and said, All of you come, you are all very welcome. Jen was angry in her heart. Her roommates wanted to hook up with some rich boy toy, so why did they drag her into it? I'm not feeling well today. You guys go ahead and play. I'll go back first. She picked up the bag and prepared to leave. I'll send you off. Harry didn't want to stay any longer, so he took the opportunity to get up. Jen hesitated for a moment and nodded in agreement. Matthew, on the other hand, became very angry when he saw this. This stinky loser ruined my plan again. He said with a cold face, You want to give it to her? How are you going to get her home? Are you going to take a bus? Hey, baby, my car is outside. Let me take you. The rest of the people are here for fun. I'll pay tonight. Jen hated people like Matthew from the bottom of her heart. She felt that it would not be easy to get away from him today. Fortunately, Harry was still there to help. Otherwise, she really did not know what would happen. She and Harry walked out of the restaurant together. Matthew also followed them out, took out the car keys, and pressed them. A Lamborghini parked at the entrance of the restaurant flashed, and the car door automatically opened. Matthew looked at Harry arrogantly. Did you see that? A Lamborghini worth $2 million. You don't have a car, so why are you so enthusiastic? Harry laughed in disdain. You call this a car? He waved his hand, and a Bentley worth $6 million slowly drove over and stopped beside his feet. Episode 14. Reward. After Bentley stopped, a man in a suit stepped out and respectfully handed over the key to Harry. Matthew was very surprised. His Lamborghini was quite expensive compared to Harry's limited edition Bentley. It was like an ugly duckling standing in front of a white swan. His Lamborghini was on a completely different level from Harry's limited edition Bentley. Harry's car was not something that anyone could buy. Matthew originally thought that he could let a pretty girl know that he was much better than the slovenly man, but who would have thought that a slovenly man dressed in inferior clothes would actually have a luxury car? Harry actually didn't want to show off like this, but after drinking Jen's drink previously, it made him feel a little awkward at the gathering today. Now that Jen was in trouble, it was the perfect opportunity to make up for his transgression against her. Although Nate promised Harry that he would not let anyone disturb Harry, Harry was, after all, the direct heir of the Parker family. He felt obligated to help where he could because he knew what it was like to live without help. Many of Nate's subordinates were secretly hiding around Harry. On the one hand, it was to ensure his safety. On the other hand, if Harry needed anything, many of Nate's subordinates would appear immediately, like a secret service, but without the suits that would give them away. This Bentley actually belonged to Nate and wasn't even the most expensive in his garage. Jen was very shocked. She did not expect Harry to be so hands-on with matters such as this. Jen took Harry to be like his roommate, just another loser. Didn't Colleen say that Harry was a beggar? Why did Harry have such a luxury car? Seeing Harry signaling her to get into the car, Jen suppressed the doubts in her heart and sat in the car. Looking at the taillights of the Bentley, Matthew seemed to have just woken up from a dream. How is this possible? How could this poor slovenly man drive a Bentley? He must be playing with me. Just wait and see. I won't let you off. Matthew was furious in his heart. He walked back to the dining hall and asked Jacob and the others about Harry's background. He was ready to wait for an opportunity to take revenge. In the Bentley, Jen watched Harry drive the car skillfully through traffic. Jen looked up a few times and wanted to say something. She wanted to understand the doubts in her heart, but she did not know where to start. She looked at Harry, who was wearing a street stall and driving a luxury car worth millions. It should be very unusual, but Harry had an undescribable temperament, which made Jen feel that this kind of combination wasn't awkward at all. Jen became more and more curious about Harry. She felt that he was very mysterious, not as simple as what others said about a beggar. Harry saw this and asked, "Do you want to say something?" Jen asked, "Who are you?" Harry smiled and said, "I'm just an ordinary university student." Liar! Jen felt that Harry treated her like a fool and teased her. "You must be wondering why a man like me can drive this car, right?" After Harry said this, he saw Jen looking at him curiously. Harry smiled and said, "Who doesn't have a rich friend? This car is borrowed from a friend. That Matthew has been pestering you. If I don't suppress his arrogant aura, how can I help you get away?" Jen did not know whether what Harry said was true or not, but she still said, "Thank you. It's nothing. I helped you because I did not respect you before. We're even now." Jen nodded in agreement. After that, there was no more conversation along the way. When they reached school, Harry said before Jen got off the car, "Don't tell anyone about me driving you today." Jen did not understand what Harry meant, so she did not want to tell anyone else. It did not have much to do with her, so she nodded and agreed. She said goodbye to Harry and returned to the dormitory. Harry asked his subordinates to drive the car away and returned to the dormitory to lie on the bed. His roommates had not returned to the dormitory yet. Harry was bored to death by himself, so he played with his phone. When he was borrowing the school forum, he saw that someone had posted something on their feed. "The campus goddess is broadcasting live. Come and see." A link was attached below. Campus goddess? What does that even mean? Who is it? Harry curiously clicked on the link and went to a live broadcast room. It was actually Jen. At this time, Jen had already changed into a well-fitting outfit. The sleeves of her clothes fluttered as she raised her hand like a fairy descending to the mortal world. "The goddess is too beautiful. I want to lick the screen," someone said. "What goddess? She's clearly a fairy descending to the mortal world. I want to lick the screen too." "All shut up. Let me lick it." "Honey, where did you buy your clothes? It's too beautiful." This was obviously a female audience member. Jen said, "I designed the clothes myself. If anyone likes cosplay and knows how to make them themselves, I can send the design drafts to you." Only then did Harry remember that Jen learned how to design clothes. "Goddess, we want to hear you sing." "Fairy, sing a song." Jen saw that everyone was requesting to sing, so she nodded and said, "Okay, I'll sing The First Time We Met for everyone." The prelude of an ancient style was played, and then Jen's intoxicating singing followed closely. Everyone in the live broadcast room was fascinated by it. All kinds of donations were posted one after another. "I have no name. He gave a small fish ball as a gift." Donations on the side had different values assorted with different emoticons. Small fish ball was a few dollars. "I'm Woof. Will give 10 roses as a gift." Roses were $10 each. Mr. Red gave a sports car as a gift. The sudden top of the gift shocked the entire audience. But this, Mr. Red, who suddenly appeared, had given a sports car, and donating a sports car as a reward cost $1,000. Jen's live broadcast room was basically filled with classmates from the same school. In the past, no one had seen someone as generous as Mr. Red. Who exactly is Mr. Red? So rich! This is the first time Jen had received a tip as high as sports car, right? So rich! Jen was shocked in her heart and quickly said, "Thank you, Mr. Red, for tipping a sports car." Benedict was pleased with himself. This woman could be bought with money. Bella was like this, so was Jen. Ever since he broke up with Bella, Benedict had targeted Jen. When he found out that she was making a live broadcast, he gave her a sports car as a gift. He wanted her to see him. He wanted to give her a few more gifts. It would be very easy to get Jen's number. He would then ask Jen out to drive his luxury car, eat a big meal, and buy her loads of gifts like brand name clothes. After these 3 steps, he would have her wrapped around his little finger. Mr. Red gifted a sports car. Again? This Mr. Red wants her so badly. I envy him. I also want to give her a sports car, but I don't have any money. Mr. Red is Benedict, the standard rich guy playboy. Someone mentioned Benedict. Benedict didn't mind. Instead, he felt that it was better than saying it himself. Jen, I'll tip another sports car. Can you give me your phone number? Benedict said proudly. Benedict still wants to give Jen another gift? That's $3,000. We can't compare. She's so rich. Everyone sighed. The goddess was going to be with the foolish rich again. At this moment, the fresh flowers in the broadcast room scattered. Freebird gifted a yacht gift that broke through the waves cut across the live broadcast room. You want a number just because you tipped a few lousy sports cars? You really don't know the world. The live broadcast room immediately started discussing it. Who is this? A yacht worth $10,000? That's way too many to donate. Harry casually tipped $10,000 with a sly smile on his face. Benedict dare to pick up girls in front of me? You still dare to pretend? I'll make you look like you can't, but you'll be mocked instead. Episode 15. Online Battlefield. No way. Another rich man? This rich man was much more generous than Mr. Red. Jen was also stunned. After broadcasting for so long, this was the first time she received a reward from a yacht worth $10,000. She quickly said, "Thank you, Freebird, for tipping the yacht." Who was this Freebird? Did anyone know this person? Is this person from Maryland University? No, Mr. Red, someone is here to challenge you. Benedict was so angry that he almost threw his phone. Where did this bastard come from? Didn't this person see that he was picking up girls? This person gave away $10,000 and wants to compete with me in terms of wealth? I've never been afraid of anyone, especially losers who think they can stand up against my wallet. Benedict steeled his heart and immediately sent another wave of rewards. Mr. Red gifted Jen a yacht. He immediately took out $20,000. The crowd in the live broadcast room was watching the show, but they didn't think it was a big deal, so they immediately started making noise. There was a fight. They were all rich people. How nice. Hey, big spenders, come to my live broadcast room. I can sing and dance, and I can do some pretty spot-on impressions. Come to my live stream room. We can meet. You know. Some streamers couldn't stand the jealousy. They invited Benedict and Harry to watch their live stream instead. Mr. Red was still the top donation at $20,000. He had paid a lot of money. The Freebird didn't continue. Everyone started thinking that he had run out of cash and thought the one-time donation would be enough. That's right, Mr. Red was the real tycoon. Primary school students should not steal their parents' money and pretend to be rich. Mr. Red said, "Jen, I just want to treat you to a meal. Can't you satisfy this request of mine?" He asked directly. Without a bit of charm and only the allure of his money, Benedict strove to claim Jen as his own property that he can just buy on a whim without considering Jen in the matter at all. Jen knew what kind of person Benedict was. In the 3 years of university, he had already changed girlfriends 10 to 20 times. All this money, it must be how Benedict can trick girls into being with him. Money was special, but it still mattered who was behind the money. Although her ideal boyfriend was some rich, handsome guy who can take care of her for the rest of her life, knowing Benedict, he didn't quite fit the bill. His reputation with women was sleazy and short-lived, always ending as quickly as it started. She wanted to refuse, but she did not know what to say. After all, Benedict had rewarded her with more than $20,000 in front of so many people. If she didn't thank him or do something to acknowledge his generous donations, she would make a lot of people mad. Receiving a gift and being ungrateful was just bad manners. Just as Jen was in a dilemma, Freebird gifted her a yacht. 10 yachts that rode on the waves lined up in a formation as they streaked across the live broadcast room. Everyone was stunned. Were they hallucinating or did the system make a mistake? 10 boats, $100,000. Rich boy, please, can I have your number? Said a random user on the live broadcast. Before the shock in everyone's hearts could calm down, Freebird gifted a yacht. Another wave of rewards, another 10 boats. The entire live broadcast room was filled with these 2 waves of rewards, leaving everyone dumbstruck. Just now when I said that I'm a primary school student, I promise I was just joking. Harry joked. Jen had completely forgotten that she was broadcasting live. She stayed in front of the camera without saying a word. She was so shocked that her small mouth did not close for a long time. Her arm dangling still to show off her designs, unmoving as the show unfolded in front of her. Where did this tycoon come from? Freebird, who are you exactly? Do you dare to expose yourself? Harry ignored these questions and directly messaged Mr. Red. Are you convinced? If you're not convinced, let's continue. Benedict was so angry that his whole body was trembling. With his family background, he could spend $10,000. He really didn't care about the money, but he still couldn't bear to spend $200,000 at once. However, this couldn't be tolerated. He had suffered such humiliation before. He had just been humiliated by Harry. Now he was humiliated by this guy who suddenly appeared in the live broadcast room. Benedict pondered to think that maybe he had been cursed and Harry was just the omen. I don't want to look like some chump in front of Jen and all these people. Now, this was no longer a matter of pursuing Jen. It was a matter of being humiliated. He had to fight back. Benedict gritted his teeth and exchanged for 20 boats to give out rewards in one wave. Mr. Red fought back. It was also 20 boats. She had earned a lot today, Benedict shouted maniacally. Come on, don't you want to fight? I'm waiting for you. Sure enough, Mr. Red was full of confidence. Of course, he was a real estate agent. This little bit of money could at most be counted as pocket money. Benedict sneered. Yes, I'm rich. I just like to spend money. Why aren't you singing anything? Come on and fight. Harry chuckled. How naive. Money did not mean everything. Your family is rich, but I'm richer than you. You want to ask Jen out? Dream on. After he finished speaking, a countdown timer of 10 seconds appeared in the live broadcast room. The chat room seemed to have gone ballistic, like something big was about to happen. No way. Wife, quickly come and see people with bottomless pockets. Mom asked me why I'm kneeling in front of the computer and typing. When Benedict saw the countdown that suddenly appeared in the live broadcast room, his hands couldn't help but tremble. Who exactly is this person? After the countdown of 10 seconds passed, a spaceship appeared in the live broadcast room, shooting flames into the sky, piercing through the atmosphere and stopping in a magnificent space city. Freebird gifted a sky city. This was the highest level reward prop on the live broadcast platform, worth $100,000. Wow! Sky City. I actually saw someone give out a Sky City with my own eyes. I'm in shock. This is a rich man. Are you some celebrity? Are you a billionaire? Jen also went crazy. The live broadcast platform would split the reward items 50-50 with the live streamer. In other words, she earned more than anything she could have dreamed of in today's rewards. This broadcast started out as a fun hobby to show off Jen's designs and art, and now it really has paid off in the most unusual way. The cause of all this was Freebird. Jen was so excited that she started to speak incoherently. Freebird, here's my number. I can't thank you enough on this broadcast. No need. I just can't see people being too arrogant. Let him know what it means to have someone stronger than him. Rich people were too great. I admire you very much. I think I'm in love. When the crowd saw Harry throw out more than $100,000, even Jen took the initiative to give him her number. They were instantly filled with admiration. Was Mr. Red still there? Continue fighting? Harry said, chiding Benedict to waste more of his money on his futile attempt to buy Jen. He was scared away just like that? Didn't you say you had money? Trash. When Benedict saw Harry tip the Sky City, he had already left the live broadcast room with a pale face. He had lost. Not only had he lost to Harry, but he had also lost to a guy who came out of nowhere. To him who was self-proclaimed to be rich, this was simply ironic. Episode 16, Conspiracy. Benedict left the live stream room without saying a word. The battle of props, which was worth thousands, had also come to an end. The live stream room was like a battlefield that had gone through an intense battle. It finally turned silent. Jen said to Freebird, "I don't know how to thank you. Why don't you order a song and I will sing it for you?" Harry was also bored and replied directly, "You can sing any song." Okay. Jen nodded and turned on the music. Lightly opening her red lips, a moving voice spread throughout the entire live broadcast room. What she sang was a moving love song. The atmosphere in the live broadcast room was stirred up. Everyone was generous with their rewards, and all kinds of small gifts filled the screen. Jen looked at all of this and felt more and more moved by the Freebird in her heart. Today, Harry's tipping directly allowed Jen's live broadcast to be promoted to the front page of the platform. Jen was curious about what kind of person Freebird was. She secretly sent her number to him. She looked forward to having the chance to contact him in the future. "Freebird, I sent you my number. If you have time, I will treat you to a meal." The goddess is tempted. "Jen, don't abandon us." Harry smiled helplessly. He still wanted to live a peaceful life. If he accepted Jen's invitation, he would be exposed. He thought about it and added her number to another phone that he did not commonly use. "Let's talk about it when we have time. Bye-bye." Jen felt a little disappointed when she saw that Harry did not seem to care about her invitation. On the other side, Benedict came to a bar with his head down and drank some wine. He had been hit hard in the past 2 days, which made him very unhappy. There were many girls at the bar. He just came over to look for some confidence. "Benedict, what's wrong with you? You look unhappy. What's eating you?" Benedict turned his head and saw that it was Matthew. The two of them knew each other. Both of their families were doing business in Maryland. They were still in the same university and had more or less interacted with each other a few times. However, Matthew's family was stronger than Benedict's family. Usually, when they saw Benedict, they would act arrogantly and order him around. This made Benedict, who was used to being worshipped, felt sorrow in his heart. Therefore, he didn't have a very deep relationship with Matthew. "It's you. What a coincidence," Benedict replied casually. "Yeah, we met today. Let's sit together. I found a few young models. You can also pick 2 later," Matthew invited. "Okay," Benedict agreed after some consideration. "You don't seem too happy. Tell me, what's up?" Matthew asked. "It's nothing. I was just humiliated today. Who would be so careless to humiliate you? Believe it or not, I was humiliated earlier today as well." Matthew thought about what happened at the music restaurant and got angry. He smashed the glass of tea on the table and said, "He is trash. He actually drove a limited edition Bentley to embarrass me. The girl I like ran away with him." Benedict was secretly pleased. It turned out that he was not the only one who was humiliated. Which girl is so blind? Handsome guy like you with your wealth? Had to have been a real scummy guy to steal a girl from you. Tell me who this girl is. "It's Jen from our school's art department and that man. He's also from our school. His name is Harry." "Harry? It's him again?" Does he just love to do bad things? Matthew had actually set his eyes on Jen as well. Fortunately, he did not get her. Benedict was secretly shocked, but after a moment, he rolled his eyes and a bad idea surfaced in his mind. Harry, this scavenger, actually dares to go against you. To be honest, I also have a grudge with this kid. Who is he? He can't really be a scavenger, right? He's crazy. His family should have some money, but his family doesn't live in Maryland. Hey, since we don't like him, why don't we close our hands and deal with this kid? Although Benedict had been tricked by Harry once and admitted defeat on the surface, he had been suppressing his anger in his heart, waiting for an opportunity to take revenge. Now, even Matthew was unhappy with him. It just so happened that the two of them were in the right position to open an alliance. Previously, he was afraid of Mr. Cross and the Parker family, but with Matthew's help, Benedict was confident that he could crush Harry. Turn that smug little know-it-all into the low-down rat that he is, so that all he can do is collect trash for the rest of his life. Sure, think of a way. I must get my revenge. You have always been smart. Later, help me think of a way to get revenge on him. Benedict saw that Matthew had taken the bait and was secretly pleased with himself. Then it's a deal. Both of them raised their wine glasses and clinked it with each other, then drank it all in one gulp. Benedict continued scheming in the back of his mind how he would use Matthew. Meanwhile, Matthew was having a similar thought about Benedict. What exactly that plan was, he did not know. Without talking about anything else, they focused on their attention on the young models beside them. In Harry's dormitory, Barry, who had just returned from dinner, pushed open the door loudly. Harry, are you all right? That Matthew didn't do anything to you. Just now in the restaurant, after Harry sent Jen away, Matthew also followed her out and did not come back. Jacob and the others were watched by Matthew's table and didn't let them move. Only now did they let them go. Barry was worried about Harry. He rushed back and asked if Harry was all right. The second their gaze was sent elsewhere, he bolted and could only think that Harry went back to the dorm. I'm fine. I swear I'm fine. Matthew is even more arrogant and despotic than Benedict. How did you escape? And Jen? So what if he's some big shot? In public, he wouldn't dare to do anything. I'll send Jen back to the dormitory. It's fine. Don't worry. Barry and the others saw that Harry was very relaxed, so they weren't afraid. The awful things Matthew and his friends said they would do seemed to have been just empty threats. Everyone was relieved to know that Harry was okay and not in some ditch covered in bruises. They reminded him to be careful of Matthew finding an opportunity to take revenge. Harry nodded and agreed. Of course, Matthew and Benedict wouldn't leave him alone. They were bullies. The only way they learn is if someone stands up to them. Usually that means they have to be bigger and stronger than the bully, and Harry was neither of those things. What he had was money. More money than he could imagine, and that made him dangerous to mess with. They did not talk about this topic anymore. On Jen's dormitory side, the dormitory mates who came back also asked Jen the same question, but it was because of Harry's instruction. Jen did not tell them the truth. She just casually responded with a few words, and the few of them did not continue to talk about this matter. She didn't want all the details being spilled out all at once. It was her broadcast, and she felt that it was a little personal to get into the details. Sasha, who was playing with her phone, screamed at this time. Jen, you got this much in donation on your broadcast tonight? What? How much? Oh my god, a total of few $100,000? Who is so rich? The roommates were frightened by the generous reward. For a moment, all kinds of feelings of envy and jealousy welled up in their hearts. Jen, you earned more than $300,000 this time, right? You earned so much from the live broadcast. Did you add this number? Did he say who he was? Did he ask you out? Jen nodded and shook her head again. I want to go on a broadcast too. I hope I can meet a rich guy who will just throw money at me, Sasha said with a look of longing. Helena also nodded her head in agreement. The two of them carefully dressed up on the spot and prepared to start the live broadcast. They wanted to use this opportunity to chat with some rich people and make some money. Episode 17, Bulldog. The next morning, Harry woke up early in the morning. After washing up, he went to the sports field to run and exercise. This was a habit he had developed over the years. After running a few laps around the sports field, Harry felt that it was about time for him to go to the lawn and get some rest. When he encountered a few mineral water bottles that were left behind, he casually picked them up. His 6 years of scavenging had become a habit for him. When he saw trash that could be sold for money, he subconsciously went to pick them up. Look, isn't that Harry? Didn't they say that he was a billionaire? Why is he still picking up trash? Someone who saw him said in a low voice. Do you really believe them? How could a billionaire come out to pick up trash? It must be a random rumor. Harry looked at the empty bottle in his hand and smiled bitterly. Previously, he picked up trash because of his family's training. Now that he had inherited the property, there was no need for him to do such a ridiculous thing. He casually threw the bottle into the trash bin. He bid farewell to his past life. A strange feeling swept over Harry, not like a burden had been lifted from his shoulder, but that for the first time, he could feel a breeze. A feeling like he hadn't been living in the world till just now. The phone in his pocket rang at that moment. Harry took it out and looked at the caller. He frowned. Of all the people to call, he didn't expect, nor did he like it being him. It was a call from his department head. This guy's name was Robert. Someone gave him the nickname Bulldog. He was mean. He always threatened to expel him from the family. He basically didn't care about the rich and powerful students in his family. Instead, he liked to cause trouble for the poorer students, making their lives that much harder. Knowing they didn't have powerful families meant that no one could stand up to him. His punishments were always based on who had money and who didn't. Picking on these kids and their family left them with no room to argue, and they had to let him do as he pleased. Being department head of the university gave him a lot of power to control the lives and futures of the students. He had even forced many female students to have a relationship with him. This matter had already spread whispers throughout the school, but no one did anything about it. Some were quiet about the ordeal. Others went into depressive spirals, and others dropped out. They felt powerless. Whenever Bulldog saw a girl who was close to failing her courses, he would threaten her with failing grades or have sex with him. Disagreeing meant that she would fail and subsequently be expelled. He was simply a beast, a scumlord of the lower order, a vile, repugnant despot who thought the world of himself and of no one else. Bulldog was a despicable person who had no moral bottom line. If he did not know the school leaders personally, he would not have sat peacefully in the department head's chair for so many years. Harry had missed a lot of classes to go out and pick up trash in order to get money for Bella to buy a phone. With all the good that did for him, learning is a part of living, and Bella was a harsh lesson indeed. That was the main reason he could think of as to why he was being called to the department head's office. Bulldog had his eyes on him, just waiting till his situation was dire enough that he would be desperate to do whatever the Bulldog wanted. Harry, come to my office immediately. Bulldog hung up the phone after saying that in a serious tone. Harry sighed. He could not run away from what was supposed to happen. He wanted to see what Bulldog was going to do. Better to learn his intentions from his mouth than to find out from some goons he would send. He met his 3 roommates on the way. Barry panted and said, Harry, I heard Bulldog is going to punish you. You missed a lot of classes before, so Bulldog will definitely look for some punishment, probably something really bad. Felton, who said, yes, I gave him $100 last time, but he still felt it was too little. I borrowed money and stuffed $100 in cash in an envelope, then he let me go. Jacob frowned and said, Bulldog knows you're poor. You usually pick up garbage, so he probably won't ask for anything. Why don't you apologize to him properly? It will be troublesome if you fail your courses. Harry sneered in his heart. You want me to apologize to him? Impossible. As a direct descendant of the Parker family, he had the pride of a big family. Don't worry. I'm sure he'll just act tough and try and scare me. After bidding farewell to the few of them, he went to the teacher's office. Seeing that the door was closed, Harry pushed it open and walked in. Bulldog was looking at a live broadcast platform. The woman on the screen was about to take off her clothes. Seeing Harry suddenly barge in, Bulldog hurriedly closed the page. He had been disturbed at a critical moment, and Bulldog could not hold his anger anymore. He scolded Harry. "Don't you know it's rude to not knock on the door when you enter an office? Do you know why I called you here today?" Harry said. "It's because I skipped class before." "Then do you know what the consequences of skipping class for no reason are?" "Let me tell you, you can forget about getting any credits this year. All the courses will be subject to failure." Harry frowned and said, "Isn't this a bit too much?" Sure, Harry missed a few classes, but he was turning his work in on time and was keeping his grades up. "If you don't want to fail, you know what to do," Bulldog said meaningfully. Harry sneered in his heart. He was asking for money. This Bulldog was really shameless. In the eyes of outsiders, Harry was a student from a poor family. Bulldog actually asked for money from him. "How much do you want? Just say it." Bulldog saw that Harry seemed to be very good at talking and said with a smile, "I know that your life is also quite difficult, and you think you have it rough. But if you make a mistake, you have to accept the consequences just like everyone else. $3,000. Harry sat on the sofa next to him and said calmly, "I have disappointed you. I'm not here to beg you today, and I will not give you any money." Bulldog suddenly stared at him. "What? Are you really not afraid of failing the course? Do you think I'm joking with you?" Harry stretched out a finger and shook it. "No, what I mean is you'd better not interfere in my matters in the future. Just pretend that you never did anything out of the ordinary in the previous classes, or else you might be fired." Bulldog was amused by Harry's words. "You're joking. You still dare to threaten me? What a joke. You can try." Bulldog put away his smile and said with a vicious face, "Harry, don't you know what's good for you? Before noon today, you have to send me the money. Otherwise, it'll not be as simple as failing the course. Do you believe I can expel you directly?" In Bulldog's opinion, not only was Harry poor, he was also very stupid. He would definitely be afraid of being expelled. Harry's face darkened. "I'll give you one last chance. If you continue to be so persistent, don't blame me for being impolite." Bulldog immediately turned hostile. "Who do you think you are? You're just a poor country bumpkin, and you still dare to be rude to me? Let me tell you, I'll expel you today." Harry smiled and nodded. "Sure, let's see who can expel who." After saying that, he walked out of the office without looking back. Bulldog held back the anger in his heart and shouted loudly, "You're just a piece of trash. You should get out of the school. Go back and pack up and get lost." In university, department heads were the head of university matters. They controlled everything about the students. Bulldog was pissed off by Harry. No student had ever dared to speak to him in such a way. He made up his mind that he would drive him away today. Episode 18. Director. "He's too arrogant. Does he really think I'm weak?" Harry walked out of the office and found it funny. Bulldog bullied the weak and feared the strong. He did not dare to offend the rich kids in the school. When he saw a billionaire, he was as respectful as a dog. However, in front of ordinary students, he was arrogant. He was simply a bastard. He thought that Harry was just a poor student who picked up trash. Harry had no money or power. He could bully Harry as he pleased. But in Harry's eyes, Bulldog was the true weakling. Harry would not care about his threats. In fact, Harry was in the wrong when he skipped class. As long as he followed Bulldog's request and gave him $3,000, this matter would pass. However, a weakling dared to threaten him. How could Harry give in? Harry directly took revenge on him. Harry went straight to the principal's office. The door was open, and Principal Feller was reading documents in his office chair. When he saw Harry walk in, he asked, "Student, what do you want?" "Principal Feller, I heard that there is an empty seat on the school board this year." Maryland University operated according to the Western University system. The daily management of the school was done by the teachers and professors, and the school's fund operation was handled by the board of directors. The members of the board of directors were not fixed. They were decided by the amount of the donation. There is such a thing. What is it to you? Principal Feller was confused by Harry. The student who suddenly entered the office looked ordinary. Who knew that he would ask about the school board of directors the moment he opened his mouth? Principal Feller did not know what Harry meant. I am prepared to donate to the school. How much money can I donate to become the chief director? What? Harry's unexpected words shocked Principal Feller. Was there something wrong with this person? He still had to donate money to the school. Did he take the wrong medicine or was he drunk? Principal Feller cleared his throat. Is there something you don't understand? Donating to the board of directors is not a matter of tens of dollars or hundreds of dollars. Obviously, Principal Feller did not take Harry seriously at all. He felt that Harry was just a poor student, and Harry just came here to make a fool of himself. Harry saw Principal Feller's attitude and went straight to the point. 100 million. Principal Feller spat out a mouthful of tea. He said in disbelief, "How much? 100 million?" Harry frowned and said, "Is it not enough? Then I will add another 100 million. Are you joking with me? Look at your attire. You don't look like someone who would casually take out 200 million or someone who would see that amount of cash in their lifetime." Harry shook his head. "I never joke about money. 200 million is nothing to me. If you don't believe me, just give me your account number. I'll arrange for someone to transfer the money to you right away." Principal Feller's expression became serious. After pondering for a moment, he said, "All right, I hope you're not playing tricks on me. You must know that I am the principal of Maryland University. I am not someone who is easily fooled." After saying that, he gave Harry the school's donation account. Harry directly operated the phone. This kind of matter could be done with his pocket money. He didn't need to trouble Uncle Nate. "All right, you could check it out." Principal Feller opened the school's donation website on his computer skeptically. There was actually a sum of 200 million on it, and it had just arrived. Principal Feller instantly sucked in a breath of cold air and said in his heart that he had misjudged. He didn't think that this guy, who dressed like an ordinary poor student, would actually donate 200 million to the school. "Student, if you want to be the head of the school board of directors, you still have to donate 100 million. Principal Feller said a little awkwardly. "Say it sooner. Don't waste my time." Harry happily transferred another 100 million over. Principal Feller felt his heart almost stop beating. 300 million! This was the largest donation he had received since the establishment of Maryland University. After donating 300 million, Harry became the chairman of the school's board of directors. "Secretary Smith, where did you go? Hurry, get the students some tea." "Oh no, it's to pour tea for the chief director. Use the expensive tea." At this moment, Principal Feller's attitude towards Harry had changed greatly. "Director, please take a seat. I don't know how to address you. What is your name?" Principal Feller knew very well that although the student in front of him wore inconspicuous clothes, he didn't need to greet his family. He could easily take out $300 million. He was definitely the son of a super rich family. Furthermore, he was dressed in ordinary clothes, which was called keeping a low profile. He wasn't even on the same level as a billionaire who was on the street. The other billionaires could not compare to him. "My name is Harry Parker." "Good name. Mr. Parker, your name sounds extraordinary," Principal Feller said. Harry was too lazy to waste time with him. He took a sip of the tea and said, "I won't give you 300 million for free. I have a request." "That should be the case. You are now the chairman of the board of directors of the school. You have the right to make a request to the school." Principal Feller nodded his head in a hurry. "First of all, I will not interfere with the daily affairs of the chairman. Don't bother me. I will arrange someone to represent me. Second, fire Robert the Bulldog. Don't ask me why. Third, I'm still a student. Don't disturb my daily life. Fourthly, erase my previous record of skipping classes. I would also like to be exempt from the policy that fails students if they miss a certain amount of class. With these requirements, can you do it?" Principal Feller patted his chest and promised. These are all small matters. There's no problem at all. The chief director was now sitting before him. Harry could do anything, but Principal Feller did not care what it was. The donation of $300 million would pay quite a few programs and plans he had lined up. As for firing Robert, it was even less of a problem. Getting rid of the scum had been on his list for years. He was never able to get past the other department heads or board of directors. He was just a department head. How could he dare to oppose the principal? If he wanted him to leave, he needed to leave immediately. If he dared to provoke Mr. Parker, it would be good enough for him to stay well away. Besides, a department head and $300 million in donations, which was more important, was needless to say a very obvious choice. All right, I'll tell you what I need to say. I'll do what I need to do. I won't disturb your work anymore. I hope you can do what I tell you to do as soon as possible. Harry stood up and said, I will definitely take care of your instructions as soon as possible. I'll send you off. Harry nodded. His main purpose was to fire Robert. Now that he had achieved his goal, there was no need for him to stay here. Harry turned to leave without finishing his tea. Principal Feller followed closely behind Harry and sent him out of the office. After Principal Feller saw Harry walk away, Principal Feller said to his secretary, Smith, find Robert's personnel files and fire him as soon as possible. Yes, Principal. I will do it now. Principal Feller thought of something again and said, The man just now is called Harry. Find out his file and pass it to me. I want to know which family he is from. To be honest, Principal Feller was shocked by Harry's generosity today. He never thought that there would be such a powerful man hiding in his school. Usually the rich kids and their parents come storming in, demanding everything for their child, and are very vocal. Harry was an oddity, having spent a few years at the university and nothing so much as a peep. Did he really want to stay hidden? With his wealth, it seemed out of character to not boast about how rich he was. To Principal Feller, Harry was in a world above. He was insignificant in front of Harry, like a boot in an ant. If he didn't pay attention to Harry, Harry would ruin his life at any time. Episode 19. Bet. Harry returned to the classroom. Barry, his friend from the same dorm, saw him and quickly asked, How'd it go? Bulldog did not make things difficult for you, right? Felton also said, Did you apologize to him? Did he ask you for money? How much did he ask you for? There was no one who didn't know the Bulldog's character. Those who offended him had to give gifts or money. Or if you were a girl he took a fancy to, there were other nasty things he would want. Harry nodded. He wants me to give him $3,000. The few of them immediately said angrily, He's asking for too much. He clearly knows that you have a difficult life, but he still dares to ask you for so much money. To ordinary students, $3,000 was not a small amount. It was already several months of rent. Who can come up with that kind of money on such short notice? To ask it, or Harry was cruel. This bulldog really had the nerve to ask you to give him money. You gave him money? Harry sneered and said, How could I give him money? I don't have that kind of cash on me. Barry was shocked. Harry, don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything illegal. At most, the few of us will give you the money and give $3,000 to Bulldog. Felton, am I right? When Felton heard this, a bitter expression appeared on his face. Harry, the last time I was blackmailed by Bulldog for $2,000, I still haven't returned it to the creditor. This time, I might not be able to help you. Jacob, say something. We're all in the same dormitory. Now that Harry's in trouble, you have to help him, Barry said. Jacob wasn't happy with what Barry said. It wasn't that he couldn't pay $3,000, but after he gave it to Harry, would Harry still be able to pay it back? Harry relied on picking up trash every day. When would he be able to gather $3,000? I don't have any money recently either. My expenses after being with Colleen are not small. Harry saw that the few of them had different thoughts and did not mind. After all, they did not know his true identity. How could an heir of a family fortune accept charity from others? Besides, they weren't willing to help him. It's fine. I didn't plan to give Bulldog any money. He actually dared to say that he wanted to expel me. Today, I will let him be expelled by the school, Harry said with a cold snort. What? You fired Bulldog? Harry, are you crazy? How could you fire Bulldog? Barry didn't believe what Harry said. Bulldog was the head of the department. He had power and influence in the school. Otherwise, these students would not be so afraid of him. His word was all it took to fail anyone out of the course. Furthermore, they had heard that he was related to one of the higher-ups in the school. Who could expel him? He's done worse things and had stayed at the school without even a slap on the wrist. Harry, I haven't seen you for a few days. You become more powerful. You want to fire Bulldog? Who do you think you are? Quickly go to the bathroom and look in the mirror. You're just a garbage collector. Stop bragging. The person who spoke was called Gary Merton, who was in the same class as Harry. His family did some small business and liked to flaunt their wealth in front of his poor classmates. He had also pursued Bella before. Unfortunately, Harry and Bella were together at the time. In his heart, he never liked Harry. Yes, today I will fire Bulldog. No one can plead on his behalf, Harry said indifferently. The class immediately quieted down. After a while, they burst into laughter. The words of the trash prince were too much to bear for the whole class. Usually he kept his embarrassment to just picking up trash, but now he thought of himself as someone powerful. It was almost too much to bear. Everyone was amused by Harry's shameless words. Harry doesn't usually brag like that. What's wrong with him today? Has he been provoked? That's right. Who does he think he is? Is he the rich and powerful heir like Benedict? He's just a scavenger, but he actually said that he wanted Bulldog to get out of the school. What a joke. Everyone knew that Harry was poor enough to have to pick up trash all day long. Who would believe what he said? However, the other few people in the class who participated in Benedict's party were silent. They did not know Harry's background, but they had witnessed everything that happened at the party with their own eyes. Harry was definitely not as simple as he looked on the surface. However, no one believed what he said. Harry had been picking up trash since he entered the school. He basically picked up trash every day for the past 3 years. Who would be willing to believe the person who picked up trash every day was a hidden heir to a fortune? Barry pulled Harry and said quietly, I know you're angry. Let's talk about this privately. How can you say it in front of everyone in the class? How can you fire Bulldog? I'm telling the truth. Bulldog won't stay long. Harry had a sincere look on his face. Barry and the others were speechless. Are you crazy? Harry smiled and didn't say anything. After all, with his status in their eyes, it was impossible for him to do such a thing. Gary Merton, on the other hand, was laughing so hard that he was bending back and forth. Harry, if you can really fire a Bulldog, I will kneel down and bark like a dog for you. Harry was amused. Sure, I hope you keep your promise. Gary Merton said proudly, Of course, but if you can't do what you say, you have to kneel down and kowtow before me to learn how to bark like a dog. It's a deal. Gary Merton was very satisfied. He had made a bet with Harry in front of all his classmates. If Harry wanted to go back on his word after losing, it would be very embarrassing for him in the future. As for the possibility of Harry winning, Gary Merton didn't even need to think about it. How could a poor person like Harry fire Bulldog? He was sure to win. He just had to wait for Harry to kowtow and bark like a dog. At this moment, the school bell rang. Bulldog took the teaching materials and strode into the classroom. Coincidentally, it was his morning lesson. Gary Merton looked at Harry proudly, stood up and said loudly, Mr. Dog, I want to report a situation. Harry just said in the classroom that he wanted to expel you and ask you to get out of school today. After he said that, he looked at Harry as if he was looking at the development of the situation. In his heart, Gary said maliciously, You dare to snatch Bella from me? I have never forgotten this grudge. Since you let me seize the opportunity today, I will directly take revenge on you. When Bulldog heard Gary Merton's words, his face turned gloomy. Harry really wanted to die from embarrassment. Harry had been very arrogant towards him when he was in the office. Did he really think he was joking when he said that he would fire him? He threw the textbook in his hand onto the podium. Bulldog was furious. He said, Harry, don't you know who you are? Didn't I say you were expelled from the school? Why did you shamelessly come to class? Harry is really unlucky. He was actually expelled by Bulldog, someone said gloatingly. Gary Merton felt even more proud in his heart. It turns out that Harry has already been expelled by Bulldog. He even said that he wants to expel Bulldog. I think he must have gone mad because he couldn't take the blow. The few people who had participated in the party had been acting up from the beginning until the end. Now, when they saw Bulldog and Harry having a conflict, they had complicated expressions on their faces. In the end, this Harry was someone who could make Benedict lower his head. Now that Bulldog had offended him, Bulldog might really be chased out of school by Harry. Bulldog, you might not understand. The one who was expelled from school was you, not me. Why did you come to class if you didn't leave quickly? Harry sat on the chair and said calmly. Episode 20. Bark Like a Dog. As soon as Harry finished speaking, the classroom went into an uproar. Everyone looked at Harry in disbelief. He really dared to say it and continue this farce. Harry must have finally snapped. Some of his classmates felt bad for him. The rest were just happy to watch the show. He actually said such a thing in front of Bulldog. Who is this guy? It clearly isn't the trash prince Harry. Harry is really finished this time. No one can save him. Everyone thought at the same time. Bulldog was even more furious. Harry may have overstepped his own arrogance. Speaking back to a teacher was a terrible thing to do. Talking back to the Bulldog was a death sentence. His nickname, the students, only dared to say it in private. Who would dare call him that in front of him? He had the nickname and reputation for a reason. Saying it to his face was just asking to incur his wrath. Harry even told him to get lost in front of so many people in the class. Was this what the students should say to the teachers? Who gave him the right to be disrespectful? Of all people, it made little to no sense for the trash prince to be name-calling, especially a teacher. Harry, you're just a poor student. How dare you scold me? What a joke. Don't say that I can do whatever I want to you in school. Even if you leave school, I could still do whatever I want to you. Bulldog slammed the table and threatened Harry loudly. Get out of the classroom right now. Get out of the school. It's best if you don't let me see you again, or else I'll make you regret it. As soon as Bulldog finished speaking, the classroom door was forcefully pushed open. Principal Feller walked in with a group of security guards. When Bulldog saw that the principal had come into the classroom unannounced, his original furious expression immediately changed drastically, and he switched to a more professional and respectful posture. Principal Feller, how can I help you? Principal Feller said proudly, What were you shouting about just now? A student broke the rules of the school and did not seem to care. I was about to expel him. Principal Feller sneered and said, Who do you want to expel? On what grounds? Principal, what do you mean? Do I not have the right to expel my students should they disobey the rules of this school? Principal Feller looked at him as if he was looking at a dead man. He said, No, you do not, Robert, because from now on, you are no longer a teacher in this school. Robert, I am now officially informing you that you have been fired as a teacher from this school. What? The classroom was in uproar again. The students whispered to each other. Bulldog was really fired by the school. How did Harry do it? Is he really not off his nut? He must have a very influential family. That can't be right. I've seen him picking up trash every day just to get by. If he had such a powerful family, why did he bother with the trash? It makes no sense. It definitely isn't because of Harry. He's just a scavenger. He must have heard the news that Bulldog was going to be fired in advance, so he came here to show off. Bulldog said with a surprised expression, What? Fire me? Principal, are you joking with me? Principal Feller said, I'm not joking with you. Get lost. Bulldog was dumbfounded. Why? Why did you fire me for no reason? What did I do wrong? Principal Feller snorted. Your claim that you teach your students is a lie. You do nothing but bully and take bribes. As for your other crimes that this school has dismissed in the past, they will be investigated. What the principal said is right. Seeing that Bulldog had been fired was already a fact that the students who were dissatisfied with him in the past all applauded and cheered loudly. Principal, this is all slander. I didn't. Don't tell me if you did those things. The relevant authorities will look for you to answer some questions. Principal Feller waved his hand, and immediately a few security guards came forward to arrest Bulldog. Principal Feller quietly looked at Harry. Seeing him nod slightly, he knew he had satisfied Harry with his swift and decisive actions. He felt relieved to keep Harry's identity secret and taking care of business. The principal sighed slightly and said to the security guards, "Take him away. Principal, listen to me. These things are all slander and lies." Bulldog's voice grew further and further away until it disappeared into the corridor. The classroom was quiet for a moment before it became lively. "Bulldog is finished! I finally got my revenge. I really got my revenge." Belton excitedly pulled Harry. "Did you do it? Bulldog actually had such a day. What retribution?" Jacob said disdainfully. "What does this have to do with Harry? How could he have such great ability? He must have eavesdropped on some news." Barry also didn't believe that Bulldog was fired because of Harry. He felt that Jacob's explanation was reasonable. Jacob didn't understand why Harry was being so adamant that Bulldog's demise would be imminent. The only possible explanation would be that Harry overheard the principal discussing Bulldog's termination. He nodded and said, "Harry, why didn't you tell us that you knew this kind of good thing? Do you secretly feel good pretending to be cool?" Belton said, "Do you just get a kick out of being so arrogant thinking you have power?" Harry laughed and said loudly, "What do you mean? I don't have to pay that scumbag $3,000, and now he can't terrorize any more students. Also, if I'm not mistaken, Gary, you have to bark like a dog for me." The lively classroom suddenly quieted down. Everyone looked at the same person. Gary was already dumbfounded. Harry was a schemer through and through. He originally thought that it would be a sure win, but Harry easily turned the tables. "How could this be?" Gary shouted in his heart. He really did not know why Bulldog was fired from the school. The problem was that it had become a fact now. According to the agreement just now, if Robert was fired by the school, Gary would have to kneel down and bark like a dog. Gary lowered his head, wishing he could crawl into the seams on the ground. Or like a turtle, he just wanted to shrink inside his own shell. He felt that all his classmates were looking at him, and he instantly felt despair in his heart. Why were they all looking at him like that? "Gary, if you're willing to bet, then you have to admit defeat. Hurry up and bark like a dog," Harry said in a joking manner. "Harry, I was just joking. Don't take it seriously." Gary really didn't want to lose the small shred of good reputation that he had. He just wanted to not make a fool out of himself. How could Harry let him go so easily? "You were quite serious when you told Bulldog about me just now. Why are you dawdling now? Quickly kneel down." Gary looked at his classmates with a look of anticipation. He hoped that someone would come out to speak for him, but no one stood up for him. They were all waiting to watch a good show. Gary thought he had at least some respect in his class, and he was completely taken aback that no one stood up for him. Helpless, he could only bite the bullet and say, "Harry, I was wrong. I'll treat you to dinner tonight and apologize to you. Don't make me kneel to you." Harry crossed his arms and said, "I won't eat dinner with you. In your eyes, I'm just a garbage collector." Barry also became excited. "That's right. Who cares about a meal? If you're a man, then quickly kneel down and bark like a dog. Kneel down. Kneel down. Kneel!" Under Barry's lead, all the students in the class shouted in unison. Gary cried, leaving behind tears of despair. Although Harry was not popular in the class, Gary was even more disgusting. He showed off in front of his poor classmates all day long. Gary and Bulldog shared that horrible characteristic. They both loved to abuse people who couldn't fight back. It was normal for no one to stand up for him at the critical moment. Everyone was waiting for Harry to help them vent their anger. Gary was pushed into a corner by his classmates. He walked in front of Harry while trembling. He knelt on the ground and began barking like a dog.